I became the god of light. Hello again, dear adventurers of the multiverse. Thanks for joining us once more on this epic journey. Remember, this story is pure science fiction from our wild imagination. So don't go trying to summon dragons in your backyard. The rights of this amazing novel belong entirely to its original author. We are only the narrators. Do you want more adventures? Show some love to our YouTube channel with a subscription and a like. And if you want exclusive content, our Patreon is waiting for you with open arms. Chapter 153 It's Impossible for You. Then, under that strange power, Su-Yun was surprised to find that the divine power within his body was indeed slowly becoming purer, just as the old tortoise had said. Moreover, he sensed that this change was permanent. Even if he eventually exhausted his divine power, the new power would be of the same purity. After a while, a loud laugh suddenly rang out. Haha, my power has increased so much, the god of rain shouted excitedly. Su-Yun glanced at him, then noticed that the water in the pool had become slightly more transparent. After laughing, the god of rain flew out of the water, looking at the holy water, and said regretfully, "What a pity, this water helped me purify some of my divine power, but then it stopped working. If only it could keep working." HMPH, kid, you really know how to dream, the old tortoise beside him sneered. The god of rain stopped laughing and said fiercely, "You tortoise, you'd better show some respect to the gods, or disaster will come knocking on your door sooner or later." The old tortoise grinned, showing no sign of being frightened. Since this person couldn't harm him, he wasn't intimidated at all. "You're just a lowly second-level god, what's there to be proud of? I've seen plenty of little gods like you, what's so surprising?" he said disdainfully. "Is that so?" the rain god sneered. "Even if I'm weak, I'm still a god, not someone like you who claims to be a divine beast but is actually a lowly creature." You, the tortoise and the god exchanged glances, looking ready to start a fight. Finally, Su-Yun glanced at them and stopped the farce. Time passed quietly. Perhaps due to his higher strength, Su-Yun hadn't finished yet. The divine power within him was still slowly becoming purer. After another 10 minutes or so, he finally felt the divine power within him stop changing, and that energy no longer had any effect on him. After a brief examination, Su-Yun discovered that just a pool of water had actually increased his strength considerably. Needless to say, after the divine power became pure, the power of his attacks would definitely increase, and even the amount of divine power itself had indirectly increased. Subconsciously, he cast a divine spell on himself, blessing spell, enhanced luck. His divine power instantly decreased, and looking inside, a hint of joy flashed through his eyes. 30%. He should have used half his divine power, but only 30% was consumed. "I've made a profit," Su-Yun thought to himself, gazing at the diluted holy water. Seeing that he seemed to have finished, the old tortoise said, "Alright, now that you've gotten your benefits, you should leave quickly." Su-Yun turned his head, secretly surprised that he didn't see any sign of pain in the old tortoise's eyes. It had been so protective of the holy water before, and now that so much had been used up, wouldn't it normally be painful? Something was wrong with this old tortoise. Looking at the pool water, he suddenly realized something and a vague guess formed in his mind. This old tortoise must have been here for a long time, but after so long, Su-Yun couldn't believe it hadn't drunk some of the water. Even if it had no effect, the water still contained energy, and the old turtle must have drunk from it. When he arrived, the water seemed perfectly normal, which was very puzzling. There was definitely something wrong. Thinking this, he suddenly waved his hand, and white light quickly permeated the entire pool. The old turtle, who hadn't paid any attention before, nearly widened his eyes in shock, exclaiming, "What are you doing? Stop!" His words made Su-Yun even more suspicious, and in a flash, with a whoosh, the entire pool of holy water was lifted up by his white light. Soon, the pool was completely empty, and the bottom was completely visible. "What is this?" Su-Yun looked at the center of the pool bottom, where a golden bead the size of an eyeball was embedded. The old turtle panicked when he saw the god notice the object. Before he could even pray that the god wouldn't notice anything unusual, Su-Yun waved his hand, and the white light picked it up, then held it in his hand and played with it. "What is this?" The god of storm stared in astonishment at the small bead. From the moment the golden bead was taken away, the old tortoise's eyes were filled with dejection, a look of utter despair emanating from its head. "Tell me, what is this?" Su-Yun looked at the tortoise. Knowing that the chances of getting the golden bead back were slim, the old tortoise resignedly said, "This is the holy water Every so often, it automatically produces some holy water. Hearing the unsurprising answer, Suyun's lips curled into a slight smile, feeling rather pleased. Although this thing was of little use to him, it would be very profitable for the tribe to use or as a specialty product. He had gained a treasure for free. The god of storms, standing to the side, was filled with envy. He knew that this thing would definitely fall into the hands of the god of light, but he didn't feel any jealousy. Because he knew that if it weren't for the god of light, he wouldn't have been able to come here, and naturally wouldn't have obtained these benefits. Even if he managed to get to this place, he would still be tricked by the turtle. Even if he wasn't tricked, he certainly wouldn't discover what was at the bottom of the pool. So, even if he wanted to be jealous, he couldn't. The old turtle suddenly looked sorrowful and said in a mournful voice, "Noble and powerful god, please leave what you have. Without it, I will surely die from exhaustion. Please don't treat me like this." He looked pitifully at Suyun, appearing utterly miserable, as if his parents had died. The god of rain looked incredulous. Suyun's lips twitched at the look. "It makes me feel like a villain." The old voice speaking these words gave him a strange feeling. It felt like he was about to punch someone at a nursing home and kick someone at a kindergarten. After thinking about it, Suyun pondered for a moment. He didn't think the old turtle's words were a lie. Judging from the fact that he clearly had the holy water yet was in such a miserable state, it was obviously not normal. He was also somewhat puzzled. Judging from the situation, this old tortoise was at least equivalent to a level 5 beast. Its imposing aura was undeniable. How could its internal energy be so depleted? It was very strange. Suyun said to the old tortoise, "What's wrong with the chains on your body? You haven't tried to break them. Do you need me to help you break them?" The old tortoise was taken aback at first, then subconsciously showed a disbelieving look. "No need." He shook his head in disappointment. "Even when I was in good condition, I couldn't break these chains. With your strength, there's absolutely no way you could do it." After saying that, he felt it was a bit inappropriate, fearing that Suyun would get angry, so he added, "I'm really not lying. When I was in good condition, I was level 5, equivalent to level 4 of your gods. Even I couldn't break them then. With your level 3 strength, it's impossible for you to do it." Thank you Ki for the 1788 book coins reward. Thank you Crying Fish for the 500 Kidian coins reward. Thank you Lululu for the 100 book coins reward. Thank you. Chapter 154 Broken, Part 2. The old tortoise's words were filled with disbelief. In truth, when Suyun and the other god entered, he had considered relying on them to break free of the chains, but unfortunately, he was disappointed when he sensed their levels. One was a second-level god, and the other a seemingly mysterious third-level god, but even they couldn't overcome the difference in their strength. He himself, with a strength equivalent to a fourth-level god, could break the chains. How could they possibly defy common sense? Thinking of this ridiculous idea, he couldn't help but shake his head inwardly. The god of rain was surprised by the old tortoise's strength, but after hearing his words, he didn't refute them. He felt that the two of them indeed couldn't break this thing. The god of light had previously displayed great strength, but third level and fourth level were not comparable. The difference between the two was enormous. Even with all his confidence in Suyun, he couldn't possibly have such a fundamentally impossible thought. "Let's go," the god of rain suggested. The old tortoise's eyes dimmed, gazing despairingly at the golden bead in Suyun's hand. Suyun hesitated for a moment, thinking to himself, "There's no way I can give up this treasure, but I feel a little guilty about just leaving." After thinking for a while, he sighed. "Fine, I'll try using the polar day technique. If it works, it'll be a win-win situation." With that thought, he suddenly said, "This chain, perhaps I can help you remove it, but I need to try first. I can't be completely sure I'll succeed." Upon hearing this, both the god of rain and the old tortoise were stunned, staring at him in disbelief. The old tortoise had previously said that even at level 4, he couldn't break the chain, yet the god of light said it was possible. The two knew that if it wasn't truly possible, the god of light wouldn't have spoken. That meant he really had the means to break the chain. Thinking this, the two were utterly shocked. "Impossible, impossible." The old tortoise shook his head repeatedly, resolutely refusing to believe it. "If you can break this chain, I'll be your guardian beast for 100 years. To express his disbelief, he made a promise, looking at him with amusement, completely skeptical that he could do it. "Give it a try." Suyun gave the old tortoise a strange look, but didn't say much. After all, it was only a possibility, but if he succeeded, this guy, As he spoke, he flew to the old tortoise's side, looking at the chain that seemed to be stuck to the old tortoise's body. Under the half-believing, half-doubting expressions of the old tortoise and the god of rain, he directly activated the eternal night character within his body. In an instant, the middle of the golden chain connecting to the old tortoise turned completely black, pitch black without a trace of light. Visually, it was as if that section had disappeared, immediately giving people a strange feeling. Suyun was surprised that he didn't even need to gather light, and then he instantly realized that the divine power within his body was rapidly decreasing. And judging from the trend, he estimated that his divine power would be exhausted in less than a second, and he could basically guess what would happen then. As divine power waned, the hidden light on the golden chains vanished rapidly. Without the supply of divine power, the eternal night spell would fail, the hidden light would reappear, and all efforts would be in vain. Suyun naturally wouldn't allow this to happen. In a flash, he opened the small black sphere. The moment it opened, a continuous stream of faith power surged forth, rapidly refined by his divine essence, and immediately clashed with the depleted divine power. Only when the current faith power was almost exhausted did the eternal night spell finally succeed. And in the blink of an eye, from the moment he cast the eternal night spell to the opening of the small black sphere and the final extinguishing of the light on the golden chains, only 2 or 3 seconds had passed. The entire process was completed. Compared to his previous casting speed, it was an unimaginable improvement. Suyun even had a feeling that the reason he hadn't achieved instantaneous casting speed was because his divine power was insufficient. If it were sufficient, he could have achieved instantaneous casting in an instant. After completing the Eternal Night technique, Suyun maintained the Eternal Night state. At this point, the consumption of divine power was negligible, and he finally had time to look at the chains with a solemn gaze. This chain is of very high quality. Compared to annihilating gods and other extraordinary life forms, this inanimate object should have been very simple, yet it still wasted more than twice the amount of divine power he possessed at his peak. This showed how terrifying this thing was. Just as he was pondering, the old tortoise and the god of rain stared wide-eyed at the chain that had turned black. This kind of pitch-black darkness, which was equivalent to the disappearance of form, was something they had never seen before. Their eyes were filled with astonishment, wondering what the god of light would do next. However, they didn't have to wait long, because Suyun came back to his senses. Looking at the chain, he directly proceeded to the next stage. Light, accompanied by a sacred voice, a soft, radiant glow, seemingly endless, emanated from Suyun in an instant. The golden chains were illuminated, as was the entire palace. The boundless, rich light made Suyun appear incomparably sacred. The old tortoise froze, a sudden jolt running through its heart. Just as the light pierced the darkness of the chains, at the same moment, wisps of dust slowly drifted from that section of the chain, shocking both the god and the tortoise. What is this? Dust? A hallucination? Although the light emitted by Suyun was intense, its softness and their own unique characteristics allowed them to clearly see the changes on the chains. As the dust multiplied and swirled, a soft crack suddenly rang out. Though the sound was small, it was deafening to them at that moment, leaving their mouths agape. The chains had broken. The darker parts of the golden chains had turned to ash, causing them to snap. Broken, broken, the eyes of the god and the tortoise widened like copper bells, their emotions beyond words. The chains, which even a 4th-level god couldn't break, snapped right before their eyes, a shocking sight that nearly terrified them. At this moment, no words could adequately express their feelings, especially as the chains turned to ashes. For some reason, they felt an unprecedented sense of crisis, as if what lay before them was something extremely terrifying, something that would kill at the mere touch, sending chills down their spines. The light dissipated, and Suyun stopped scattering his light. Now, the god of rain and the old tortoise looked at him as if he were some monster, their eyes filled with shock and fear. What was that just now? The god of rain swallowed hard, asking cautiously. A terrifying power. The old tortoise's body stiffened. He had broader knowledge, but he still couldn't understand that power. Besides its mystery and strangeness, it only filled them with horror. Suyun said speechlessly, "Shouldn't you be worried about the broken chains?" The god and the tortoise were startled, especially the old tortoise, who only recovered from his shock after being reminded. Yet, shouldn't we be worried about the chains? No matter how this guy tries to explain, he's definitely a freak. A normal god can break something that even a 4th-level god can't. After thinking this, the old tortoise quickly perked up and with a shudder, He removed the remaining chains from his body. The strange power that the chains originally possessed had also completely disappeared. Haha, I'm free. I've finally broken free from these damned chains, ha ha ha. The old tortoise laughed maniacally, making the god of rain shudder and move away from him. Suyun, on the other hand, didn't mind and understood the guy's current mood. Anyone trapped in a dark and sunless place for who knows how long would have passed. To only show such an expression when freed from restraints was already quite remarkable. The old tortoise laughed heartily, crawling around erratically for a while before finally snapping out of its madness. Do you still stand by your promise? Suyun asked jokingly. The god of rain looked somewhat gloating. The old tortoise's expression froze upon hearing this. A hint of hesitation flashed in its eyes, but to Suyun's surprise, it finally said, I will naturally keep my promise. It's just a mere 100 years, what's the big deal? Compared to being trapped here, being a guardian beast is nothing. I agree, it said resolutely. Compared to being trapped here, with its long lifespan, a mere 100 years was just a matter of sleeping a few more times, a win. It thought to itself with relief. Suyun's expression was slightly surprised. He had only been joking, he hadn't expected this level 5 beast to actually agree. Having a powerful beast would be quite beneficial to him. Putting aside everything else, once he regained his strength, he would definitely be a formidable force. And while 100 years might seem short, it felt like a very long time to him. With 100 years, his strength would be unimaginable. Then this tool turtle would be useless, cough cough. Speaking of strength, Suyun thought of the future and looked at the old turtle with suspicion. His aura hasn't changed at all. He had initially thought the chains were restricting him, but even after removing them, his energy hadn't recovered. So, he asked in confusion, what happened to your strength? The god of rain immediately perked up his ears upon hearing this. He was also very curious about what could have caused the level 5 beast to become so depleted and miserable. The old turtle was stunned, lost in deep thought. From his eyes, Suyun was surprised to find that he also seemed filled with confusion, unable to understand what was going on. I don't know what happened, I only know that one day, the power of the sea within me began to slowly deplete. I remember that day, the sea god went. Wait, sea god? Suyun and the god of rain interrupted him simultaneously, their faces full of surprise. That's right, the old tortoise looked at them strangely. Don't you know the sea god? This is the sea god's territory. Suyun and the god of rain exchanged a glance. So this ruin belonged to the sea god. Although he had never seen the sea, Suyun did not doubt the existence of this authority. He had never really looked at this world closely. Who knew how big it was? The presence of the sea was quite common. And since there was a sea, there must be corresponding authority. After understanding this, Suyun pondered the old tortoise's words and suddenly a guess formed in his mind. Based on speculation, could this old turtle be a follower of the sea god? Could the supposed depletion of the sea's power be because the sea god perished? Thinking this, he blurted it out. You said the depletion of the sea's power, could it be because the sea god perished? The god of rain, standing nearby, nodded in agreement. However, this most likely guess from the two gods was not accepted by the old turtle. Impossible, the old turtle exclaimed, his face changing color. Be careful what you say. Don't continue to slander the great sea god. As he spoke, a look of fear and trepidation appeared on his face, his head turning and looking around as if afraid of something appearing. Why? Based on what you've said, shouldn't this be the most likely possibility? The god of rain remained unconvinced, assuming the old turtle was just a fanatical believer. You simply don't understand the power of the sea god. The old tortoise was exasperated, his eyes filled with fear, his aged voice trembling. Don't say another word. Any sea god who uses a malicious title might attract his attention. If you want to die, don't drag me down with you. Upon hearing this, Suyun and the other god were stunned. The god of rain looked bewildered, staring at the old tortoise with suspicion, not understanding his words. Gods have this kind of ability? I didn't know that, he muttered. Compared to him, Suyun was much better, a thoughtful look in his eyes. To him, gods having this kind of ability was quite common, not surprising at all. As for the god of rain's mutterings, he guessed that they were simply too weak to possess such an ability. Just as he was thinking this, the old tortoise's words confirmed his thoughts. HMPH, don't you even know your own strength? You can't even beat me, how can you compare to the unimaginable sea god? The old tortoise gave him a mocking look. You, the god of rain was furious. If he hadn't known his attacks were ineffective against this guy, he would have already unleashed his fury. "Are you so sure you're not afraid of the what if?" Su-Yun suddenly asked. "Of course there's a reason. You don't think I'm some kind of fanatic, do you?" As he spoke, he gave the god of rain another disdainful look, clearly meant for the god of rain's ears. "I'll endure it." The god of rain gritted his teeth. The old tortoise turned back and slowly continued, "The reason I say that is because the great sea god has another name. You can call him a celestial god, or you can call him a true god." Chapter 155 The Immortal God. "Why are you called that?" Su-Yun asked, puzzled. "True god, celestial god." The god of storms looked on with disbelief. "How strong is the sea god you're talking about?" Hearing their questions, the old tortoise seemed to hesitate for a moment, then said somewhat awkwardly, "I'm not really sure about that. I only know that the sea god is extremely powerful, but as for his specific realm, that's beyond my knowledge." After saying that, the old tortoise seemed afraid that the god of storms would retort, so he quickly continued, "What I'm going to say next is why I'm so sure the sea god isn't dead." Upon hearing this, the god of storms instinctively shut his mouth, listening curiously. "Although I don't know much either, I do know what qualities the sea god possesses, and those qualities are why the sea god is a true god." The old tortoise slowly uttered the last sentence, but it was so shocking. The sea god possesses the quality of immortality. Su-Yun and the god of storms were directly astonished. "What did you say? You're not making this up, are you?" the god of storms retorted in shock. Su-Yun's mind raced, guessing, "You mean he's immortal? Could it be that he's too powerful, and nothing can kill him?" "I knew you'd say that." The old tortoise, head held high, declared smugly, "I'm talking about true immortality. The sea god can't die. Don't judge the unimaginable sea god with your shallow eyes." This, Su-Yun and the other god exchanged glances. The old tortoise's unwavering conviction made them somewhat skeptical. After all, even as gods, they found this unbelievable. Could there be such a powerful god who was truly immortal? "I know what you're going to ask. I don't know much either, but immortality is definitely true." The old tortoise shook his head, stating firmly. The god of rain still didn't believe it, questioning, "If it's really like you say, why is everything outside in ruins? Where did the sea god go?" The old tortoise had almost forgotten how many years had passed. He had indeed vaguely guessed what had happened outside, but even with confirmation, he was stunned for a long time. "I don't know, maybe something happened to the sea god, but he definitely won't die," he said without the slightest hesitation. Su-Yun pondered, cutting straight to the heart of the matter. "Where did you say the sea god went in the end?" The god of rain fell silent, knowing this was the crucial question. "The sea god went to fight the evil god," the old tortoise said nervously. "That was an incredibly evil god." "Evil god?" Su-Yun pondered, a guess forming in his mind. "These ruins have many evil creatures, could they be related to the evil god?" Upon hearing this, the old tortoise and the god of rain thought for a moment and agreed. "What you said is very likely," the old tortoise explained. "Those evil creatures weren't originally in the ruins, they only appeared after the sea god disappeared. It seems the sea god's disappearance is related to the evil god you mentioned." Su-Yun nodded, guessing, "But I think he probably didn't fare well either. Perhaps both sides were severely injured." This time, the old tortoise didn't refute. He had considered this possibility over time. Seeing that he couldn't figure it out, Su-Yun changed the subject. "By the way, why are you trapped here?" Well, the old tortoise's eyes darted around, his gaze flickering, as if he didn't want to answer. The god of rain's eyes lit up, as if he'd found something to hold accountable, and he casually guessed, "You wouldn't have come in to secretly soak in this holy water after the sea god disappeared, would you?" Upon hearing this, the old tortoise's eyes widened slightly, filled with panic. "I didn't." "You're lying," he protested, his voice trembling with fear. The god of rain had only said it casually, intending to annoy the old tortoise, but seeing his reaction, he immediately knew he'd hit a nerve. "Haha. I was right." The god of rain laughed wildly with delight. Then, he mocked, "God of light, you'd better watch out. Be careful that this old thief doesn't steal all the good stuff from the tribe, you wretched brat." The old tortoise's eyes blazed with fury. It leaped up, stretched out its head, and bit straight at the god of rain. The god of rain was startled and quickly dodged. Su-Yun, he felt that something was off about these two. Su-Yun twitched his lips and said, "Let's go, we have important things to do." He took off first. Seeing this, the two guys stopped their antics. "This water," looking at the remaining holy water, the god of rain suddenly pulled out several storage bags from his body, clearly having come prepared. He filled some of the holy water in the pool with them, and sighed, "What a pity, I should have brought more storage bags. What a regret." The old tortoise gave him a disdainful look for his greedy appearance. Suyun wasn't bothered. With the holy water the water was worthless to him anyway, and he only had one storage bag, he couldn't very well flood it. Thinking of this, he suddenly remembered something and his gaze fell on a piece of golden chain that had fallen from the old tortoise and was lying on the ground. Considering its special material and the possibility of future use, he easily retrieved the meter-long, thick chain. After they finished preparing and took flight, the old tortoise looked embarrassed and hesitant below. Suyun quickly understood why. "You can't even fly anymore," the old tortoise admitted, though embarrassed. With a wave of his hand, Suyun unleashed the white light that lifted the old tortoise, placing it beside him. The tortoise and the two gods continued their journey. Along the way, Suyun asked, "Old tortoise, your power can't be restored. If it truly couldn't be restored, then the tool tortoise would be useless," he thought regretfully. The old tortoise had no idea what he was thinking, and upon hearing this, its eyes filled with emotion. "Old tortoise, I've had this idea for a long time, but I've always lacked the necessary conditions, which is why I haven't been able to implement it." "Oh, what is it?" Suyun asked. The old tortoise hesitated for a moment, then said, "You all heard me say earlier that I'm a divine beast, right? Actually, the difference between me and other beasts is that the power within me comes from the gods. Before, the power within me belonged to the sea god." Chapter 156 Reuniting with Vulcan and the others. "I don't know what happened to the sea god, but now that I want to regain my power, I must convert to another god and obtain that god's power. With my previous foundation, it shouldn't take long to recover." After hearing his words, Suyun was only slightly surprised, while the god of rain was speechless. "You old turtle, are you even a follower of that sea god? You actually betrayed your god." He clicked his tongue in admiration, his eyes full of disdain. The old turtle became angry and embarrassed. "You brat, you should call me Grandpa Turtle. How dare you call me old turtle? HMPH, first of all, I'm not that devout to the sea god, and besides, you call yourself a god. Do you really think converting is such an easy thing?" He turned around and despised the god of rain. "What do you mean?" The god of rain frowned. The old tortoise explained, "The most crucial element for switching allegiance is the thread of faith. Only when it disappears can you switch allegiance. I don't know what happened to the sea god, but the thread of faith between me and him has indeed vanished. This truly horrifies me." The old tortoise looked bewildered, clearly not understanding what could possibly cause the thread of faith to disappear. "I see." Suyun and the others understood, and the god of rain even secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Suyun pondered, "This is quite similar to when I transmigrated to the modern world. However, back then, it was only severed, the thread of faith still remained. It shouldn't be the same as what this old tortoise is saying, disappeared. I really don't know. If the sea god didn't perish, what could possibly cause the thread of faith to disappear, even for such a powerful sea god?" After thinking this through, he looked at the old tortoise and asked, "What do you need to do? Inject your power into my body and help me cleanse it?" The old tortoise said, its eyes shining. Suyun raised an eyebrow, said nothing more, and immediately began to act. A ball of white light gathered in his palm, suppressing the damage, and then he injected it into the old turtle's body. The light entered his body and quickly spread, covering his entire body. Suyun, who was manipulating the device, sensed through the white light that the old turtle's body was truly devoid of power, even worse than he had anticipated. This wasn't just depletion, it was a complete lack of energy. At the same time, he felt the turtle's body subtly rejecting his power, as if trying to expel it. The old turtle's eyes showed pain, and it gritted its teeth, saying, "Hold on." Hearing this, Suyun didn't stop. As time passed, perhaps due to adaptation, the old turtle's body gradually reduced its resistance to his power. Then, when the resistance almost disappeared, its body, like parched land receiving rain, began to absorb the power of the light. Suyun could feel that as the old turtle absorbed his power, its body slowly began to change, seemingly being transformed. Another 20 minutes passed before the old turtle's body finally stopped absorbing the light. Seeing this, Suyun immediately withdrew his power. "Watch me now." The old tortoise suddenly grinned lewdly, then stared intently at Suyun, muttering to himself, "The noble and powerful god of light, you are so." Then, a series of exaggeratedly flattering words escaped his lips. Suyun felt a chill run down his spine, staring at the old tortoise strangely. As the old tortoise continued its rambling, less than 10 minutes later, a line suddenly appeared within Suyun's divine collar, startling him. Upon closer inspection, he discovered that this thread of faith actually belonged to the old tortoise. Although it was only a faint line, it was still astonishing enough. The old tortoise also sensed the formation of the faith thread, immediately beaming with joy and ceasing its nauseating words. Suyun's gaze was somewhat strange, thinking to himself, was this old tortoise just self-suggesting? His ability is truly remarkable, brainwashing himself, even with the lowest level of faith. He's still quite arrogant. His lips twitched slightly. After his initial joy, the old tortoise said, "Now, as long as you release the restrictions, power will be born within me." Huh? Suyun was genuinely surprised this time. The old tortoise had skipped the clear lines. Even the lowest level could generate light power. He didn't think much of it and directly released the restrictions. A short while after releasing them, a wisp of light power was born within the old tortoise. Experiencing the long-lost power, he laughed heartily. "Finally, I finally have power again." The god of storms, watching from the side, became impatient seeing them speaking in riddles. After finally learning what had happened, he was dumbfounded, his gaze towards the old tortoise strange. Then, as if remembering something, he said, "I only have a handful of divine warriors left." "How did you manage to do this, kid? You really want to take advantage," the old tortoise said disdainfully, then said smugly, "However, your people can't do this. Without a body as strong as mine, they would surely die from the erosion of the power baptism." These words completely dispelled the god of storms' idea of taking advantage, but just as he was disappointed, the old tortoise turned to look at Suyun and said, "I know a little about your gods. I know that when you reach a certain level, you can lower the requirements for faith." Upon hearing this, both gods' eyes lit up. This was good news. Just as they were chatting, a new situation suddenly appeared ahead. Suyun saw three familiar figures not far ahead. The god of rain also noticed and exclaimed, "It's the god of fire and the others." At this moment, the three gods also saw them, and their reactions differed. The god of fire was delighted, the god of forest was surprised, and the god of gale frowned. Originally, the three of them hadn't expected to be randomly separated upon entering. If they hadn't been so familiar with each other and already had their own methods of contact, they might still be missing. The god of fire was deeply worried and felt guilty about not being able to contact the god of light and the god of rain, fearing something might have happened to them. This ruin is very dangerous. With them around, it's relatively safe, but if they're separated, as second-level gods, they'll definitely face many dangers. Just as he expressed his concern and the god of gale gloated, the two gods appeared, which naturally delighted the god of fire. "Great! You're all alright." The god of fire arrived with the other gods, his face beaming with joy. "It's good that you're alright." The god of forest smiled slightly, her beauty breathtaking. The god of gale clicked his tongue in amazement, his words filled with disdain. "You two pieces of trash are really lucky. With your strength, you didn't die on the way, but never mind, from now on you'll stay close to us. If I'm in a good mood, I might even protect you." Upon hearing this, the god of fire and the god of forest frowned. The three of them, who had been in relatively good spirits, suddenly felt their mood sour. "Thank you Yudi for the 1,500 book coins. Thank you Lululu for the 100 book coins. Thank you 20180808010957847 feet for the 500 Kidian coins. Thank you." Chapter 157 The God of Light is a level 3 god. Sensing the undisguised aura emanating from the god of gale, the old tortoise's eyes were filled with confusion. What is this guy saying? Isn't he only level 3? How dare he mock us? He even dares to ridicule the god of light, that freakish monster. He's either mentally unstable or even more of a monster. When did monsters become so numerous? The old tortoise looked at the god of gale with a strange gaze. The god of rain, however, didn't get angry this time. Instead, a hint of schadenfreude appeared in his eyes. He knew much more than the old tortoise. This god of gale dared to offend the god of light, a monster capable of easily killing level 4 evil beings. His fate would surely be grim. Gale, the god of fire, opened his mouth, about to say something. But before he could finish, the god of gale suddenly looked puzzled, as if he had discovered something strange and incomprehensible. Originally, after the god of gale finished his mockery, his attention naturally turned to the old tortoise. He had only been observing for a moment when he suddenly noticed the white light enveloping the tortoise. The intensity of the aura emanating from it seemed off, strangely familiar. Instinctively, he carefully sensed the strength of the white light's aura, and then he froze. The god of Gale exclaimed in disbelief, "Level 3 aura? Impossible, what level 3? The god of Fire asked, puzzled, glancing in the direction the god of Gale was looking, then belatedly noticing the aura of the white light. The god of Forest, standing nearby, also noticed it. The expressions on the faces of the three gods were incredibly varied. They were all dumbfounded, staring at Su-Yun as if he were a monster. "This god of light, you?" the god of Fire stammered, pointing a finger at him, his heart churning with turmoil. The god of Rain, standing beside Su-Yun, suddenly straightened his back and smiled at them, saying, "That's right, the god of light is a level 3 god. Impossible. Wasn't he a level 2 god before? Wasn't he the god of a small tribe? How could he be a level 3 god?" the god of Gale shouted in disbelief. The god of Fire and the god of Forest were also deeply puzzled. Su-Yun looked at their varied expressions and a smile crept onto his lips. He said softly, "I never said I was a level 2 god." These calm words stunned the three gods once more. They thought about it carefully and realized it seemed true. All along, it had been their subjective judgment that the god of light was a level 2 god, and the god of light had never mentioned his strength. But even so, thinking about how the god of light had always observed them as a level 2 god, and how they had treated him like a junior, the god of Fire and the god of Forest were filled with embarrassment, while the god of Gale blushed. The scene fell silent. The god of Fire suddenly remembered that he had said before that the god of light would definitely become a third-level god within 100 years, and that the ruins would protect him. Thinking back to that time, when the god of light, a third-level god, silently watched him, he wished he could disappear into a hole to ease his embarrassment. He couldn't help but look at Su-Yun with resentment. The god of the Forest, on the other hand, was relatively calm. She hadn't exchanged many words with the god of light, and was actually glad she hadn't said anything strange, otherwise she would have lost face. Glancing at the expressions of the god of Fire and the god of Gale out of the corner of her eye, a smile appeared in her green eyes. The god of Gale's face flushed red, his expression shifting between anger and embarrassment as he looked at the god of light. Anyone who had previously looked down on someone would feel uneasy if that person suddenly became their equal. Especially after twice calling the god of light a waste. He had offended a god of the same level for no reason. It was no wonder he was in a bad mood. However, apologizing was out of the question, given his personality. Even if the god of light was only a level 3, so what? He himself was the same, a seasoned level 3 god, and had nothing to fear. He consoled himself with this thought, figuring he'd already offended him, so why bother apologizing? He snorted coldly and said, "You didn't reveal your identity beforehand, so you can't blame me for what you said earlier." Su-Yun glanced at him indifferently, saying nothing. His goodwill towards this god of Gale had already plummeted to its lowest point. These incidents revealed the god of Gale's character. He was completely unworthy of being befriended, so he simply chose to ignore him. Seeing the tense atmosphere among them, the god of Fire quickly stepped in and said, all right, our most important task now is to explore this ruin. With the god of light joining us, our chances of success have increased significantly, which is a good thing." The god of Fire stroked his coarse hair and laughed heartily at Su-Yun. "Haha, why didn't you say so earlier? You made me look foolish." After speaking, he turned to look at the old tortoise curiously. "By the way, what is that tortoise next to you?" He had just finished speaking when, instead of receiving a reply from Su-Yun, he heard a strange, aged voice. "I am not a tortoise, I am a divine beast." The old tortoise glared angrily. The three of them were stunned upon hearing this, their eyes fixed on the tortoise. "What's going on?" the god of Fire asked in confusion. "It's like this," the god of Rain quickly explained the situation. However, being clever, he didn't mention the old tortoise's strength, its role as a guardian divine beast, or even the holy water eye. He didn't say anything he shouldn't have, only picking out some unimportant details. After Vulcan and the others finished listening, even if not all of them, they were still astonished, because they had heard about the sea god and the matter of immortality. "That's impossible, isn't it?" the forest god said, biting his lip in disbelief. "Immortal?" Vulcan's eyes widened in disbelief. The wind god looked completely incredulous. Su-Yun glanced at their varied expressions and said, "I don't know if this is true or not. Whether you believe it or not is up to your own judgment. However, regarding that sea god. Since this ruin belongs to him, there must be some information about him. We should be able to find something in this ruin that might help us make some judgments about this matter." After saying this, Vulcan and the others fell into deep thought, all agreeing that his idea was sound. "Then let's set off quickly," Vulcan said impatiently after finishing his thought. Now that there was something more worth exploring, they became even more curious about the ruin, hoping to obtain some useful information. The god of fire said, "The divine fruit I mentioned earlier isn't far from here. Let's hurry and get it. Then continue exploring the other parts of the ruins." If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 158. You defeated the god of fear. The gods nodded in agreement. The god of fire quickly led the way. Along the way, idly, he asked curiously, "God of light, what's going on with your tribe? Why did my people only see so few people when they came to your tribe? It doesn't meet the standards of a large tribe at all." This question lingered in his mind, and he couldn't help but ask. "What do you mean?" the others asked the god of fire, puzzled. After understanding what had happened, they all looked at Suyun with astonishment. The most important standard for a large tribe was its god. Normally, there should be at least 10,000 believers in tribespeople before a powerful god could be formed, but Suyun seemed to have reversed this, which naturally surprised them. "Your tribespeople, could it be that most of them died from a plague?" The god of Gale's face showed a hint of schadenfreude. Upon hearing about the plague, both the old tortoise and the other god's pupils contracted. The plague, except for being almost ineffective against divine warriors, was extremely deadly to ordinary tribespeople. Without a proper treatment, many tribespeople would indeed die. If the god of light's tribe had truly lost many members in this way, then it would be easy to understand and quite worthy of sympathy. Thinking this, they awaited Suyun's answer. Suyun's lips twitched. He was somewhat impressed by their imagination. It must be said that plagues are indeed terrifying, but their effectiveness against him was uncertain. He possessed healing magic. Even if he couldn't cure the plague, he could use his healing magic periodically to force his tribesmen to heal themselves. Seeing everyone's gaze, Suyun smiled without speaking, clearly not intending to answer. The god of fire and the others, not hearing an answer, didn't take it to heart, assuming he was embarrassed to speak. Their minds filled with various imagined calamities, and they felt sympathy. The god of Gale, seeing that Suyun didn't refute, said, "That means the god of light's tribe only has a few members, he is not at his peak." Thinking this, a sense of contempt arose in his heart. Even though they were all third-level gods, the number of their clansmen affected the amount of their faith power, which in turn affected their divine power. How could the god of light possibly fight him? Not to mention the god of Gale. Even the god of fire and the god of forest felt a slight decrease in their wariness of Suyun. Suyun didn't know what they were thinking, but even if he did, he wouldn't care. They flew in silence for a while longer when Suyun suddenly thought of something and abruptly said, "We might need to be more careful from now on." "What?" The god of fire and the others looked puzzled. Suyun slowly said, "I encountered a third-level god called the god of fear shortly after entering this ruin. I suspect there are more than just us who entered this ruin." "What? It's him?" the gods exclaimed in shock, especially the god of rain, who looked terrified. "You know?" Suyun asked. "I know," the god of fire nodded, his face full of apprehension. "That guy, like us, is a god who owns a large tribe. He and the shadow god who invaded our tribe before are the kind of guys who like to invade other tribes, belonging to one of the most hated tribes." He sighed. "This is troublesome. If that guy comes in too, we'll have to be careful, lest we be ambushed by him when we're injured." The god of Gale curled his lip in disdain. "What's there to be afraid of? We have so many third-level gods. If that guy dares to come, I guarantee he won't come back." Although he didn't get along with the god of light, he had to admit that with the addition of the god of light, their team's strength had increased significantly, and they no longer needed to fear the god of fear. "The god of Gale is right, but I'm not just worried about him," the god of fire said worriedly. "I don't know why the news of the ruins was leaked, and why it fell into the hands of the god of fear, but I suspect that there might be more than one in these ruins. If that's the case, then we really need to be careful." Upon hearing this, all the gods except Suyun showed fear in their eyes. Suddenly, they became cautious, even their gazes towards their surroundings became more careful. "God of light, Where did the god of fear go afterward? The god of forest wanted to know more about the situation. Seeing that their gazes were all focused on him, Su-Yun could only tell the truth. I fought him once. Upon hearing this, all the gods perked up, curious about the outcome. However, when Su-Yun said what followed, they were completely shocked. He said calmly, "He was no match for me and fled. I couldn't catch him, and I don't know his whereabouts." What? The gods listened in disbelief, staring at Su-Yun in astonishment. "You defeated him," the god of fire confirmed in surprise. "He escaped," the god of forest exclaimed, his eyes filled with astonishment. The god of gale turned pale. Su-Yun glanced at them strangely, nodded slightly, and said, "One of us was bound to lose eventually." What's so surprising about that? Hearing his words, the gods twitched their lips, speechless at the ease with which he spoke. They knew that the god of fear was a veteran third-level god, just like them, yet he had lost, and more importantly, escaped. Even the three of them weren't confident of victory against the god of fear, but judging from the god of light's expression, it seemed like he could do it easily. How could this not surprise them? The pride of the god of fire and the god of forest as veteran third-level gods, coupled with the fact that Su-Yun's tribe was short of people, made them subconsciously underestimate Su-Yun. Hearing this, their contempt vanished instantly, replaced by solemnity. As for the god of gale, who already disliked Su-Yun, he was now filled with even greater apprehension. He had to place Su-Yun on an equal footing with himself, no longer daring to underestimate him. He thought, if the god of light wasn't lying, then whose strength is worth taking seriously? The old turtle and the god of rain wore expressions of certainty, showing no surprise whatsoever. The god of light is indeed a monster. They both simultaneously had similar thoughts. Just as everyone's emotions were surging, they were nearing their destination. The god of fire surveyed the environment and said, "We're almost there. There are evil creatures ahead that could threaten us. Everyone be careful." Everyone nodded, indicating they understood. After flying for about another minute, they all sensed the evil, chilling aura emanating from ahead. Chapter 159. Not long after sensing the aura, they saw various strangely shaped evil creatures appearing ahead. Their auras varied, the weakest being only level 1 and the strongest even reaching level 4, and there were quite a few of them. As for level 5 evil creatures, none were found here, but that made sense. If there were, the god of fire wouldn't have discovered this place, and would have avoided it immediately upon sensing the aura. "God of fire, is that the divine tree you mentioned?" the god of gale asked, gazing into the distance. In the distance, a large tree, 7 or 8 meters tall, with lush branches and more than a dozen orange-yellow fruits, stood upright. Around the tree were more than 20 evil creatures, their malevolent aura filling the area. "That's right, that tree is it, and the fruits on that tree are the divine fruits I told you about," the god of fire exclaimed, his eyes burning with desire as he looked at the orange-yellow fruits. The forest god frowned slightly, then asked with a puzzled look, "Fire god, those evil creatures you mentioned are indeed troublesome, but if we took advantage of their unpreparedness, we should have been able to slowly seize all the fruits." "Why do we need your help again?" the fire god said. "You don't know, there's a protective barrier around that divine tree that can isolate those evil creatures and my attacks. We can't break through that barrier using ordinary methods." "Oh, then how did you get the divine fruit?" Su-Yun asked the crucial question. "Yes," the rain god also looked puzzled. The fire god smiled and explained, "Last time, I don't know if I was just lucky, but the barrier suddenly weakened for a while. During that short time, I successfully broke through and got one. After that, the barrier started to recover. I was afraid of being trapped inside, and I didn't know its effects beforehand, so I just grabbed one. Now I really regret it to death." Sigh, he sighed, his face full of regret. "This barrier can even self-repair," Su-Yun said in surprise. Compared to the previous tree, this tree's protective measures were on a completely different level, clearly making it much more precious. The god of fire nodded, indicating that the shield could indeed regenerate on its own. The others also showed expressions of surprise. "This tree. I vaguely remember it," the old tortoise suddenly said. His words immediately piqued the curiosity of the others, who quickly began to inquire. The old tortoise wore a smug expression, enjoying the attention he received as he spoke eloquently about things others didn't know. He slowly explained, "Actually, the divine plants in this ruin were mostly planted spontaneously by believers, because the sea god doesn't need these external things. The tree's shield was simply a protective measure implemented by the believers. I remember the fruit of this tree. It's called the sacred fruit or something. It's been so long I've forgotten, he chuckled, a hint of embarrassment in his eyes. I see. Although they hadn't heard any particularly important information, the god still nodded. The god of Gale carefully sensed the aura of the level 4 evil creatures, his expression changing slightly. There are actually 5 level 4 evil creatures. This is a bit troublesome. There are many more evil creatures here than when I last came. The god of fire's eyes showed apprehension. Suyun guessed, judging from their surroundings. They probably want those fruits. Fortunately, the protective barrier is blocking them. The god of forest looked at the 5 level 4 evil creatures that stood out conspicuously among the evil creatures, and couldn't help but show a hint of relief. Luckily, we have an extra god of light this time, otherwise, the chances of the 3 of us defeating these 5 evil creatures would be very low. Haha, that's right, the god of fire laughed heartily in agreement. The god of Gale beside him glanced at Suyun but didn't refute these words. Although he disliked the god of light, he had to agree with him. With 5 level 4 evil creatures, how should we distribute them? The god of forest suddenly hesitated. As soon as he said this, the atmosphere became quiet. They currently only had 4 level 3 gods, while there were 5 level 4 evil creatures here. Besides the one god facing one evil creature, the additional evil creature would definitely have a negative impact on them. This would require one of them to risk facing 2 equally powerful evil creatures alone before they finish dealing with the others. In any case, this was a dangerous undertaking, and a single mistake could be fatal. Driven by a desire to avoid danger, all the gods except Suyun hesitated. The god of fire paused for a moment, remembering that he had brought the other gods here, and gritted his teeth, ready to take on the task regardless of the danger, when the god of Gale spoke first. I have a better suggestion. The god of Gale smiled slightly, seemingly casually glancing at Suyun. Suyun's eyes narrowed slightly, sensing a hint of malice, and he vaguely guessed what was going on. What? The other gods were puzzled. The god of Gale gazed at Suyun. Among us, the strongest is undoubtedly the god of light. After all, he claims to have defeated the god of fear. I think having him face both of them is the safest choice. As he spoke, he flashed a wide smile, looking at Suyun with a beaming smile, seemingly offering this suggestion out of kindness. What? The other gods were initially taken aback, but then, after thinking about it, they felt the suggestion was indeed quite good. However, since it concerned their safety, they dared not answer on behalf of the god of light, and they all looked at Suyun. This god of Gale is truly treacherous. If the god of light weren't so monstrous in strength, he would have truly fallen for his trap. The old tortoise's eyes were filled with disgust. The god of rain hesitated, originally wanting to reveal Suyun's strength, but seeing the god of Gale's ugly appearance, he chose to remain silent, feeling a little smug. Suyun found it somewhat amusing and was about to say something when the god of fire suddenly spoke up. God of light, if you're willing, you can take an extra share of the divine fruit later. Upon hearing this, the other gods showed surprise. I agree, the goddess of the forest agreed. I think it's fair to do something so dangerous. She then glanced at the hesitant god of the Gale, successfully silencing him. I agree too. The god of the Gale frowned for a moment, then could only nod in agreement, secretly thinking, HMPH, god of light, I'm afraid you'll go but not get it. In his view, risking the god of light a share of the divine fruit was entirely worthwhile. With good luck, he might even perish. Chapter 160 I'll help you increase your strength. Presumably, even with his immense strength, the god of light wouldn't be able to escape unscathed from the attack of 2 level 4 evil creatures. He would at least suffer some injuries. A smile appeared on his face. Suyun had already intended to agree. 1 or 2 level 3 evil creatures made no difference to him. It was just a matter of dealing with them easily. I've gotten another divine fruit for free. The god of fire is truly a good god, he pondered, secretly giving the god of fire a good guy card. The god of fire, seeing him silent for a while, thought he disagreed. Thinking about it, it makes sense. Even if the god of light is powerful, he shouldn't agree to something so dangerous. Thinking this, he said, since you're unwilling, god of light, then I'll do it. No, I agree, Suyun said with a smile. Oh, you don't? The god of fire only managed to say a few words before realizing that Suyun had actually agreed. He asked in surprise, you agreed? Suyun nodded in confirmation, which immediately made the god of fire and the others overjoyed. After confirming, he suddenly said, wait, for safety's sake, I'll help you enhance your strength. Upon hearing this, the god of rain immediately thought of his previous surge in power, and his eyes lit up with excitement. God of light, what did you say? The god of fire and the others looked puzzled, thinking they had misheard. Enhanced strength? What enhancement? They clearly understood, but they still didn't understand what the god of light meant by enhancing strength. Suyun didn't say much, only thinking to himself, perfect for testing whether consuming more divine power can increase the effect of strength enhancement. Logically, if luck could be strengthened, strength enhancement should also be possible. Thinking this, he directly mobilized half of the divine power he possessed in his full state. Suyun whispered, "Blessing spell." As his voice fell, he activated the blessing characters within him, releasing them after discarding the luck effect. A dazzling light flashed, then enveloped everyone, including himself, not even sparing the old tortoise. Well, except for the god of gale, cough cough, yes, he was that petty. This scene left the god of fire and the god of the forest momentarily stunned and bewildered. Fortunately, they didn't sense any danger, so they chose to remain still and let the god of light do as he pleased. The moment the light enveloped their bodies, the god of fire and the god of the forest felt their power surge across their entire bodies, and they were immediately dumbfounded. Suyun sensed the effect, and the corners of his mouth slightly turned up. He thought to himself, not bad, it actually increased by 70 or 80%, although it wasn't as terrifying as the boost from luck, the effect was still quite good. Moreover, he felt that this shouldn't be the limit. If he continued to consume more divine power, it could continue to increase. My strength has increased so much, the god of the forest belatedly exclaimed in surprise, his face full of disbelief. This is your divine magic. The god of fire was also shocked. The old tortoise's eyes widened suddenly, and his gaze towards Suyun became even stranger. He muttered, "What kind of monstrous divine magic is this?" In fact, because his strength had disappeared, his feeling was even more profound. The god of rain's smiling face froze. Compared to the doubled strength increase last time, this increase was even greater, and his heart trembled. Last time it wasn't even the limit of the god of light's divine magic. Could it be this time too? He looked at Suyun with awe. Seeing their shocked gazes, Suyun calmly nodded, "It's just a slight increase, don't worry about it, this is just a slight increase." The god of fire and the god of forest were speechless, looking at Suyun with strange eyes, full of envy and a hint of awe. Their respect for the god of light also increased significantly. "What are you talking about?" The god of gale, who had been overlooked, was somewhat confused. "Our strength was increased by that divine magic just now," the god of fire quickly explained, especially how much it had increased in all aspects. He explained in detail. This, after the god of gale finished listening, he looked at Suyun with disbelief, his eyes filled with shock, and his heart grew increasingly wary. How can there be such an unreasonable divine magic? He felt a pang of regret. If he hadn't unintentionally offended the god of light beforehand, he would never have provoked this guy if he had a choice. This divine spell, how much power will it enhance the god of light? No wonder he was able to defeat the god of terror. Thinking of this, he felt a little resentful and jealous, and questioned, "Why do all the gods of light have it, but I'm the only one left out? Are you doing this on purpose?" The scene fell silent. The god of fire and the god of forest looked at the god of gale with very strange eyes. Suyun's lips twitched, and he thought to himself, "Since you are so self-aware, why did you ask me? Don't you have any self-awareness?" Of course, he thought this, but he couldn't say it. He said coldly, "I'm sorry, this divine spell consumes a lot of my power. My divine power is almost exhausted." The god of gale was stunned, and then his heart was filled with resentment. He thought bitterly, "Do you think I would believe that even a tortoise has it and that I'm exhausted? Only a fool would. God of light, your divine power is exhausted." The god of fire was somewhat convinced. Such a powerful divine spell would consume a lot of power, which was normal. Thinking this, a hint of worry appeared in his tiger-like eyes. After a moment's thought, he took out some items from his storage pouch. "These level 3 faith crystals are for you, they should help you recover your divine power." He then placed the faith crystals in front of Suyun, holding them with fiery red divine power. The god of gale, the old turtle, seeing the god of fire's actions, the god of forest thought for a moment and also took out the same number of level 3 faith crystals from his storage pouch. "I have some here too, here you go." He placed them in front of Suyun, holding them with emerald green divine power. Suyun was surprised and carefully examined the level 3 faith crystals. 8 from the god of fire, 8 from the god of forest, a total of 16. After a quick conversion with level 4 faith crystals, he knew that this number of level 3 faith crystals would not only help him recover his divine power but would be more than enough. He didn't stand on ceremony. After all, it was a fact that he had consumed a large amount of divine power, and he accepted them without any unease. "Thank you," Su-Yun said gratefully. Then, in front of everyone, he crushed the 8 level 3 faith crystals of the forest god. A dense, unclaimed faith power immediately spread out, which Su-Yun absorbed with lightning speed. In less than a breath, his divine spark, which had previously consumed a lot of divine power, was almost fully replenished. As for the 8 crystals of the fire god, he put them into his storage bag, intending to keep them for later use. The Gale god's face was grim, and he couldn't bring himself to say anything more, only coldly snorting, "HMPH, even without your so-called divine magic, with my strength, I don't need it." The fire god quickly smoothed things over. "Alright, now that the light god's divine power has been restored, let's deal with those evil creatures first." After saying that, he turned to look at the rain god. "Be careful, don't be reckless, don't worry." The rain god nodded, his face full of confidence. With the blessing of the god of light, he was brimming with confidence and couldn't wait to crush the level 3 evil creatures. Without another word, the god swiftly flew towards the horde of evil creatures and, before they could react, simultaneously unleashed their attacks. A dazzling array of powerful divine spells bloomed in an instant. Thank you for the 100 book coins. Chapter 161 The Astonished Gods. Vine Binding Technique. The forest god's thoughts stirred, and a vast expanse of emerald green swiftly enveloped the horde of evil creatures. The next moment, thick, sturdy vines sprouted from the ground, spiraling around the creatures and binding them tightly. Blazing Flame Technique. The fire god waved his hand, and a raging, fiery red sea of fire instantly formed, hurtling towards the pile of evil creatures. Windblade Technique. The Gale god, his face cold, raised his hand, and countless almost transparent wind blades appeared in the sky, their attack speed far exceeding that of the other gods, swift as lightning. Rainstorm Technique. Compared to the other third-level gods, the rain god's attack was much smaller, seemingly insignificant. Seeing them make their move, Su-Yun also unleashed a divine spell. Holy Flame, accompanied by a detached voice, milky white flames imbued with a holy aura surged towards the pile of evil creatures, their power comparable to the attacks of the other third-level gods. This attack immediately attracted the attention of the other gods. A chorus of astonished gazes turned to Su-Yun, especially from the god of flames, who was utterly shocked. Because of his status as the god of flames, he could sense the peculiarity of the flames even more keenly. Besides the captivating divine aura, he felt that the flames merely resembled fire on the outside, but were actually formed from some special power. Like light itself, yet they were indistinguishable from real flames, even surpassing them in some way. Thinking this, he gazed deeply at the god of light, feeling his mystery and power even more acutely. If even the god of flames was so astonished, the other uninformed gods were even more suspicious, glancing back and forth between the imposing god of fire and the dazzling god of light, suspecting some shady deal between them. Otherwise, why would the god of light release flames? The god of Gale's apprehension deepened. While they were lost in their own thoughts, the evil creatures, after a brief moment of panic, reacted simultaneously, especially the 5 level 4 evil creatures, who reacted swiftly. Although they were bound by the god of forest, it didn't prevent them from unleashing their attacks to defend themselves. A starfish composed of ice crystals, seemingly of the same kind as the one Su-Yun had instantly killed before he could react, shimmered with a ghostly blue light. A massive ice crystal shield rapidly condensed before it. Among the other 4, a spherical monster made of fire, with 2 claws on its body, lashed out with its claws, unleashing a torrent of flames. A large, ugly insect resembling a moth flashed red in its eyes, followed by a swift, invisible energy beam carrying a faint red glow, blocking its path. A semi-transparent, round monster burning with a ghostly green light flashed in its eyes, and a massive, chilling, ghostly green energy ball immediately blasted towards it. Finally, a mantis-like monster, as tall as a human, sliced through the vines of the forest god with 2 gleaming blades, then vanished in a blur. Aside from the 5 mentioned above, the other evil creatures, except for a few with exceptionally fast reactions, were overwhelmed by the attacks of Su-Yun and the other gods before they could even mount a defense. Boom! 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 Violent collisions rang out continuously. Countless wind blades, like sharp weapons, pierced through most of the level 3 and below evil creatures, leaving them severely injured or even dead. As for the level 4 evil creatures, with their attacks less concentrated, the wind blades were completely ineffective against their protective shields and other defenses. Suyun and the god of fire followed closely behind with their flames. White and red flames shone brightly, surging across a radius of several hundred meters. Among the gods, their attack range was the largest and most awe-inspiring. In an instant, the area several hundred meters below was completely filled with flames, the intense heat causing the evil creatures to scream in agony. Apart from the 5 level 4 evil creatures and the ones they protected, those who were already severely or lightly injured began to melt in the flames, their struggles futile. Although these low-level evil creatures were almost powerless against their attacks, there were still some differences between the two. The flames of the god of light, the god of gale, glanced at the special flames and compared them to the flames of the god of fire, a deep sense of dread flashing in his eyes. The god of forest looked at the flames with surprise. The god of fire smiled helplessly. The white flames of the god of light were not only incredibly lethal to these evil creatures, but also seemed to have a restraining effect. Even the damage they caused was different from that of the god of fire. The god of fire's flames were clearly just relying on intense heat to injure the enemy. But the god of light's flames, besides the high temperature, also caused the energy shields that the evil creatures resisted, as well as their bodies themselves, to mysteriously and rapidly disappear during the burning process, leaving everyone astonished. Amidst screams, in less than 10 seconds, apart from 5 level 4 evil creatures and a few lucky low-level evil creatures, the rest had all been reduced to ashes and nothingness under the attacks of the god of fire and Suyun. Even the level 4 evil creatures' defenses seemed to crumble under the onslaught of flames. "Leave the fire-wielding creature to me," the god of fire exclaimed excitedly. The other gods, hearing this, suddenly understood. With the authority the god of fire wielded, the fire-wielding evil creature posed virtually no threat to him. For a moment, all the gods, except Suyun, looked on with envy. "I'll take the ice and the winged flying insect," Suyun said calmly. Next, the god of gale was assigned to the mantis monster, and the god of forest to the ghostly green transparent monster. After the gods were assigned, they each found their targets and lured the monsters away from their group. Fortunately, these creatures weren't very intelligent. After a little luring, they angrily attacked the source of the attack. The old tortoise, meanwhile, hid in the distance, watching the battlefield intently. "Haha," the god of fire laughed heartily, feeling the surging power within him. He unleashed a barrage of fire attacks at the evil creature. With his current amplification and the power of his authority, the level 4 evil creature was reduced to the size of a level 3, suffering a brutal beating. "It's been so long since I've felt this good," the fire god thought excitedly, feeling grateful for the light god's blessing. He felt incredibly powerful. The forest goddess also wore a broad smile. The blessing's amplification gave her a significant advantage, overwhelming the semi-transparent monster. The rain goddess was holding back several other low-level evil creatures, enjoying a period of triumph. As for the gale goddess, she was having a tough time. The mantis monster was incredibly fast, and although she herself was fast, this gave her no advantage, resulting in a stalemate. "Damn it," the gale goddess left a trail of afterimages as she dodged to flashes of cold light, cursing under her breath. Seeing the god of fire and the god of the forest dominating the battle, he immediately thought of the god of light's blessing spell, and a mixture of envy and resentment welled up inside him. Instinctively, he turned to look at where the god of light was, but the moment he did, his eyes widened in shock, almost popping out of their sockets. What? Not only him, but the god of fire and the god of the forest, while beaming with pride and smiles, also glanced at Suyun's location. However, when they looked over, their expressions froze, and like the god of gale, they were completely stunned. Chapter 162 God of Light, Save Me. Golden Wheels. After luring the monsters away, Suyun didn't waste any time and immediately used his most powerful move besides the Polar Day technique. 2 golden wheels were instantly formed. The moment the golden wheels were completed, the 2 level 4 evil creatures sensed danger, and the moth monster's eyes flashed red. Suyun, who was about to unleash the golden wheels, sensed something. Instinctively, he moved away from his original position. An invisible attack with a faint red glow appeared in an instant where he had just stood, followed by a violent explosion. Judging from the force of the attack, the consequences of being hit were not good. At the same time, Suyun felt the surrounding air begin to cool, and wisps of ice crystals formed around him. A dying struggle, Su-Yun said calmly, and then, in the next moment, he activated the golden wheels. Two shrill sounds of air being torn apart rang out, and the moth monster and the ice star, who were about to continue their attack, suddenly showed fear in their eyes. An ice shield, an invisible protective barrier, they tried to defend themselves and dodge at the same time. Unfortunately, the speed at which the golden wheels erupted was simply too fast. Boom! The ice shield cracked instantly, and the invisible shield also made a poof sound as two golden wheels came head-on, their golden light shining into the terrified eyes of the two monsters. Poof! Crack! The moth and the ice starfish were pierced through, one spurting blood, and cracks began to form on the other's icy body. In just a moment, they were severely injured. If it weren't for their powerful vitality barely holding on, they would probably have died instantly. After all, the golden wheels not only pierced through them, but their intense heat alone was enough to make them suffer. Su-Yun had no intention of holding back and, having been prepared all along, struck again in that instant. Healing spell, weakened version. Holy flame. Green light covered the two severely injured evil creatures at an extremely fast speed. In an instant, the effects became apparent, and even another effect that had been hidden until now unleashed its power. Two screams followed as their already severely injured bodies worsened, moth blood gushing from their wounds like it was free, only to be evaporated into a blood mist by the golden wheel. The cracks on the ice star's body widened considerably, a horrifying sight, as if it would shatter into pieces at any moment. Just as they were on the verge of death from the healing spell's severe effects, the holy flame, like the last straw, completely crushed them. Surrounded by the surging flames, they screamed and died. This whole sequence of events, though described in words, only took a short time. It was at this moment that everyone's attention shifted to this scene, having just witnessed two level 4 evil creatures being annihilated by Su-Yun in the blink of an eye. I knew it, the god of rain and the old turtle both thought it was indeed the case, showing no surprise whatsoever. The god of fire, who had been smug about his strength, and the god of forest, who had been overjoyed, were utterly dumbfounded when they witnessed Su-Yun instantly kill a level 4 evil creature, which offered almost no resistance. Shocked, they subconsciously compared their own strength to Su-Yun's and suddenly felt ashamed. So strong, dead in an instant, their faces flushed red with disbelief. If even they were like this, then the god of Gale, who had always harbored a subtle hostility towards Su-Yun, was even more astonished. He initially thought he was seeing things and refused to believe it was real. If the god of light was so powerful, easily killing a level 4 evil creature, then he, who had always opposed him, must look incredibly stupid. With the god of light's strength, I'm like a tiny insect trying to challenge someone, so laughable. What if he wanted to kill me? Thinking this, he shuddered, staring at Su-Yun in fear, even the intense jealousy and resentment in his heart dissipating considerably. Just then, a flash of cold light erupted from beside him, startling him and snapping him back to reality. The mantis monster, seeing him momentarily stunned, wasn't about to let such a golden opportunity slip by, and secretly prepared a fatal blow. Even with his quick reflexes, the god of Gale couldn't dodge the sneak attack and was immediately struck. Ah! The god of Gale screamed in agony as his waist and abdomen were sliced through, nearly severing him in two. This was only because he managed to dodge slightly, otherwise, he might have truly been cut in two. Boom! Driven by his will to survive, the god of Gale unleashed a powerful gust of wind, briefly forcing the mantis monster back. Startled by his scream, the god of fire and the god of forest, who had also been stunned by Su-Yun, were also taken aback and quickly turned their attention back to their respective targets. What they saw was the attack coming their way. They were sweating profusely, no longer daring to be distracted, and immediately focused on their respective opponents. The surging waves of flame and the dark energy orbs, these two attacks were incredibly powerful, distorting the air itself. Seeing the attacks almost touching their faces, they could only hastily parry. While the god of fire, relying on his authority, was largely unharmed, the god of the forest let out a muffled groan, suffering some minor injuries. After Su-Yun finished dealing with the evil creature, seeing the perilous situation of the god of fire and the god of the forest, he couldn't help but softly ask, "Do you need help?" "No, no need." The two gods, currently locked in combat with the evil creature, blushed simultaneously and refused. A sense of embarrassment welled up within them. They were both third-level gods, yet the god of light had so easily defeated the evil creature, while they were still stuck in this stalemate. They felt utterly ashamed. Now, they mustered all their strength, wanting to eliminate the evil creature before them as quickly as possible, to regain some face. Seeing that their situation wasn't critical, Su-Yun didn't intervene and instead looked towards the god of Gale. Seeing him wounded and bleeding profusely, Su-Yun didn't offer help, simply watching coldly. Clutching his wound, the god of Gale dodged several cold attacks. His injury had broken the stalemate, putting him at a disadvantage as he struggled to defend himself. Damn it! Cursing the mantis monster, he noticed Su-Yun's attention and a sudden surge of hope arose within him, wishing the god of light would intervene. Even knowing the chances were slim, the threat of danger compelled him to think this way. Unfortunately, despite his stubborn defenses and waiting, no help came. After suffering another wound, he couldn't hold back any longer. Losing face was better than losing his life. He cried out to Su-Yun, God of Light, save me. Chapter 163 The flames are terrifying. Su-Yun remained unmoved. Seeing his expression, the god of Gale felt a chill in his heart, a mixture of regret and anger filling him. The god of light had actually stood by and watched him die. Driven by his survival instinct, he endured the pain and suddenly shouted, "Help me, and I can give you 30 level 3 faith crystals." Upon hearing this, Su-Yun, who had been unmoved, raised an eyebrow in surprise. To be honest, he was somewhat tempted, but the thought of the god of Gale's previous heinous acts prevented him from intervening. God of light, help him, the god of forest pleaded. Yes, the god of fire echoed. As the two gods spoke, their figures subtly moved closer to the god of Gale, their intentions clear to Su-Yun. Su-Yun, who hadn't initially planned to intervene, fell into deep thought upon hearing their words and seeing their movements. With the god of fire and the god of the forest around, the god of Gale will at most suffer a bit, but he'll probably be fine in the end. Instead of that, let's earn some faith crystals from the god of Gale. Judging from his gritting teeth, it'll probably be a painful amount for him. Taking advantage of the god of Gale's distraction in the battle, he didn't have time to notice the god of fire and the god of the forest's actions, and said, 40 crystals. The disheveled god of Gale was overjoyed at first, then hesitated for a moment. But seeing the mantis monster's relentless pursuit, he shouted urgently, "Okay, I agree." Just as he finished speaking, another blade of light flashed and was about to attack, making his heart tremble, thinking he would be injured again. Fortunately, at this moment, Su-Yun made his move. Healing spell, weakened version. Holy flame. A two-hit combo was instantly unleashed from his hand. The pale green aurora first enveloped the mantis monster, and the mantis monster emitted a burst of blue energy around its body, trying to resist the light. Unfortunately, it was all in vain. The aurora passed right through it, shining directly onto its body. At that moment, a wave of weakness washed over the mantis monster, even causing its small wounds to burst open under the light, splattering green fluid. Its speed instantly decreased dramatically. The god of Gale, who had been prepared to be injured, dodged the attack in a daze. When he realized what was happening, he was stunned by the mantis monster's speed. Those green lights, he had naturally noticed the beautiful lights, and compared to this scene, he knew the mantis monster's slowdown was definitely related to them. It can even penetrate energy and worsen injuries. He stared at the aurora in disbelief, horrified. What kind of divine magic is this? The more he understood the god of light, the more terrifying he felt. Various extraordinary divine magics appeared one after another. Just then, the holy flame arrived, a raging white flame engulfing the mantis monster, rendering its speed futile. A furious scream erupted from the mantis monster's mouth, and powerful azure energy instantly burst forth from its body. Whoosh! A violent burst of flames exploded, the azure energy forcefully pushing the flames back 4 or 5 meters, forming a protective shield. Seeing this, the mantis monster let out a triumphant cry, seemingly declaring victory. The god of Gale, who had been watching from a distance, naturally noticed the evil creature's actions and felt a surge of resentment. HMPH. The flames of the god of light aren't so easily withstood. How arrogant, he mocked. Having changed sides, he had to admit that the god of light's divine magic was indeed unreasonable, as it was now. Sure enough, at that moment, the protective shield surrounding the smug mantis monster rapidly changed. As the milky white flames burned, the shield began to diminish imperceptibly. When the mantis monster realized what was happening, it was puzzled to find that the shield had become thinner and thinner in a short time. Boom! Before it could react, the protective shield shattered instantly, an intense heat accompanied by tongues of fire licked at its body. Sizzle! In just a moment, its body was charred black, and not only that, some flesh inexplicably disappeared. It panicked. Enveloped in flames, it felt an intense sense of danger, its previous smugness vanished, and its compound eyes were filled with terror. It couldn't stay in the fire. Instinctively, it came to this conclusion. Boom. After expending a great deal of its energy to condense another protective shield, it began to flee in terror. The god of Gale's eyes reflected a white light, a hint of trepidation in them. What terrifying flames! Seeing the mantis trying to escape, he immediately shouted, "Don't even think about running." Instinctively, he unleashed a tornado spell. Whoosh! A massive tornado roared and blocked the mantis monster's path. Normally, it might have had a chance to escape, but after being weakened, the wind god's attacks were already incredibly fast, no less so than its own. In a flash, its body was pulled by the tornado and rapidly dragged into the vortex. If it were just that, it wouldn't be so bad. With a protective shield, even if it were hit by the tornado, it would only suffer minor injuries at most. But now it was different, because the tornado had undergone a mutation. Suyun was somewhat surprised and stopped his plan to use the golden wheel. As the tornado spun at an extremely fast speed, inevitably, some milky white holy flames were directly attracted by the wind. The more flames were absorbed, the more the tornado quickly took on a new color, turning into a white tornado. After Suyun suppressed the flames, preventing them from potentially damaging the tornado, the wind, fueling the fire, resulted in a situation where 1 + 1 did not equal 2. The terrifying aura emanating from the white tornado was noticed even by others far away, let alone the mantis monster at close range. Just as he was involuntarily pulled to the edge of the vortex, the part of the shield that touched the tornado vanished. Yes, in a mere instant, the shield was disintegrated by the rapid flames. The mantis monster paled in horror, its compound eyes filled with fear, and it let out a terrified scream. However, no matter how much it struggled, the next second it was completely pulled into the white vortex. Any part that touched the rapid flames had no ability to resist and was almost instantly disintegrated and disappeared. Finally, after a piercing scream, the mantis monster was reduced to nothingness and died. Hiss! The gods who witnessed this scene from afar gasped slightly. Even the god of wind was no exception, and was even more shocked, because he knew that his wind did not have this special effect. Originally, Suyun's flames, even if they were strong, were still within the god's acceptable range, not to the point that they were afraid. But now, amplified by the wind speed, the gods realized for the first time just how monstrous the strange flame effect truly was. Look, that mantis monster didn't even have the chance to resist. In an instant, it was reduced to nothing. Not even ashes remained. How could this not be monstrous? Chapter 164 The God of Light can heal wounds. Even Suyun himself was surprised. He truly hadn't expected that, combined with the extreme speed of the wind, the effect of the divine flame would be amplified to such an extent. What terrifying flames! The god of fire and the god of the forest were both distracted and shocked while dealing with the evil creatures. As the fire tornado gradually dissipated, the god of Gale looked at Suyun with complex emotions, a mixture of resentment and fear in his heart. A few minutes passed, and with 2 piercing screams, the god of fire and the god of the forest finally annihilated the 2 level 4 evil creatures. Normally, they should have felt happy and accomplished after eliminating 2 evil creatures of equal strength, but with Suyun's achievement before them, their accomplishments seemed insignificant. Without comparison, there is no harm. How could they be happy? They flew to Suyun's side. God of light, you, sigh, the god of fire sighed, saying with a hint of resentment, how are you so powerful? The god of forest laughed and said, it's all thanks to your divine magic, god of light, that our strength has increased so much. Otherwise, we don't know how long we would have fought. As they spoke, both the god of fire and the god of forest showed expressions of relief, feeling the power within them. A sense of reluctance arose in their hearts. If only they could always possess this power, how wonderful that would be. Thinking this, they envied the god of light even more. They could only experience it briefly, while the god of light could amplify his power at any time. How could a god not envy him? They envied Suyun, while the god of Gale, clutching his wound, envied the 2 of them. At least they could experience the feeling of powerfully slaughtering a level 4 evil creature, while he had experienced nothing. Just as their feelings were complicated, rainstorm, with a low shout, fine rain pierced the last evil creature like needles. Within the entire range of the divine tree, there was not a single evil creature left. Seeing this, the old tortoise hurriedly ran towards them from the distance. After everyone had gathered, the forest god, looking at the wind god's wounds, asked with concern, "Wind god, are you alright?" Upon hearing this, all the gods turned their gaze to the wind god, seeing his blood flowing freely in a large gash in his abdomen. This was only the largest. The smaller wounds, while not as horrific, still looked incredibly tragic and gruesome. Suyun estimated that if an ordinary person hadn't been a god, bleeding like this would have either collapsed from shock or begun to feel cold. Even so, in his eyes, these wounds on a god were considered severe. The other gods naturally noticed as well. The fire god said with some worry, "Wind god, your injuries are so severe, you'll probably need to rest for a day or two." Sigh, what should we do now, he thought. It was impossible to stay here for a day or two just to help the wind god recover. If that were the case, not only would it be a waste of time, but the other gods still present in the ruins would be a huge problem. They might even seize the benefits first. The god of Gale naturally realized this as well, and a chill ran through him, his face turning grim. At this moment, the god of Forest suddenly clutched her arm, frowning. "God of Forest, are you injured too?" the god of Fire asked. The gods looked at her. Her left sleeve was riddled with corrosion, revealing her snow-white skin in a similar state. The god of Forest said helplessly, "I was momentarily distracted and was ambushed by that evil creature, but don't worry, it's just a minor injury, nothing serious." As she spoke, she glanced at the god of Gale, a hint of pity in her eyes. Compared to the god of Gale's injuries, her own wounds were indeed minor. Just as the gods were worrying about the injuries, Suyun pondered for a moment and suddenly said, "God of Forest, I can heal your wounds." "What?" The gods were stunned, thinking they had misheard. "Heal wounds? What did that mean?" "You mean, you can heal them?" The god of Forest looked at her wounds, her face filled with disbelief. The other gods were also surprised and suspicious, even the old tortoise glanced at him suspiciously. Suyun didn't say much, directly activating the healing characters within his body. Healing spell, accompanied by a holy and melodious voice, layers upon layers of beautiful pale green aurora light rapidly enveloped the forest god. "It's that light." The gods, including the old tortoise, recognized what the light was in an instant, but it was precisely because they recognized it that they were even more puzzled. They had seen the evil creatures enveloped by the light god seem weakened and seriously injured when he cast the spell earlier. Wasn't this a negative light? What was the light god doing? The forest god's expression changed slightly, but out of trust, she didn't take any other action. Of course, the green light was also too fast, and she knew she couldn't dodge it. Also, judging from the previous effects, this light was even more strange than the flames, possessing the ability to penetrate energy. She knew she wasn't confident she could resist, so she didn't prepare to fight back, lest she waste her efforts and lose face for nothing. Just as the forest goddess was filled with trepidation, in the blink of an eye, the green aurora enveloped her. What happened next left all the onlookers speechless. "What, this is?" Under the light, the forest goddess's wounds began to twitch, flesh rapidly growing and healing. Her wounds were actually healing. "This light has no negative effects, it can even heal injuries," the fire god exclaimed in surprise. Not only the forest goddess, who had experienced it firsthand, but the other gods watching were also dumbfounded and greatly astonished. In just a short while, with the healing effect of the green light, the wound on the forest goddess's arm was completely healed. Except for the torn sleeve, there was no trace of injury. The forest goddess touched her smooth arm, her mouth agape. With a thought, she restored her clothes, and now there was truly no trace of injury on her body. Seeing that she was healed, Suyun withdrew the aurora. As the light faded, the gods turned their gaze to Suyun. The god of fire eagerly inquired, "God of light, isn't your light supposed to have a negative effect? How can it heal?" He looked utterly astonished. "Yes, I feel like I've truly recovered." The god of the forest was equally amazed, then gratefully said, "Thank you. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 165 The Unbreakable Barrier. My divine spell is called Healing Spell. Healing is its primary function, Suyun explained calmly, then shook his head. "It's nothing, no need to thank me." Watching all this, The god of rain gaped, suddenly speechless. The difference between gods is really that vast, he thought wistfully. Even the well-informed old tortoise muttered to himself, how can this god of light possess so many bizarre divine spells? Now he's revealed his healing abilities, he truly has no weaknesses, a man who can both fight and heal. He couldn't imagine anyone of the same level who could defeat this freak. Comparing the god of light to many other gods he had encountered, he had to admit that the god of light's potential was limitless, arguably the most freak he had ever seen. I wonder if he has even more freakish abilities, I just can't see through him. Perhaps following him was indeed the right choice, the old tortoise thought with a sigh. After thinking it over, a thought suddenly popped into his head, could the god of light possibly have the potential to become a true god? The moment this thought crossed his mind, he was startled and quickly dismissed it. What am I thinking? Even if the god of light has extraordinary potential, that's still a true god. It's not something that's easy to achieve. Thinking this, he couldn't help but laugh at his own thoughts, realizing he was being foolish and hadn't considered such an impossible idea. While the old tortoise was lost in thought, the god of gale was experiencing a mixture of excitement and unease. Feeling his extremely weak and aching divine body, he hesitated for a moment before making up his mind. Then, his face flushed red, and he stammered, God of light, can my injury, this plea for help, especially from the god of light with whom he had always been at odds, made his heart burn like fire. Hearing this, Su-Yun coldly glanced at the huge, gruesome wound on his abdomen, which was still losing divine blood. Sorry, my divine power is insufficient. The familiar words caused a moment of silence. The gods, including the fire god, looked puzzled, unsure if it was true. But then they thought, with such powerful healing abilities, consuming a large amount of divine power was perfectly reasonable. The wind god forced himself to think this way, and before the other gods could speak, he endured the excruciating pain and reached into his storage bag. A flash of light, and a pile of glittering faith crystals appeared in the air. As soon as these faith crystals appeared, a dense wave of faith power emanated from them, incredibly attracting attention and drawing everyone's gaze. These 40 level 3 faith crystals are the amount I promised you. The wind god, suppressing his own pain, waved his hand, using his divine power to support them, and delivered them to Su-Yun. Su-Yun was slightly surprised, but then accepted the reward without hesitation. The god of gale hesitated for a moment, then gritted his teeth and said, how much do you want to heal my wounds? Just say it. Su-Yun glanced at the god of fire and the god of forest, and seeing their pleading expressions, he didn't refuse. However, even though he was ready to agree, he was prepared to make the god of gale feel the pinch. Thinking this, he said, I already have enough faith crystals, I don't need any. Before the god of gale and the other gods, whose expressions had changed drastically, could speak, he continued calmly. One divine fruit. As soon as he finished speaking, the god of gale breathed a sigh of relief, then his face turned ugly. Divine fruit, he hesitated. Although there were more than a dozen fruits on that tree, they had to be divided equally, and even the god of light had taken 2 shares, so the number he would get would be very small. Su-Yun didn't force him, and said calmly, if you don't want to, you can refuse. The god of fire and the others, who were standing to the side, looked at him with sympathy, while the god of forest felt even more grateful. The god of gale, catching his breath, his eyes slightly red, said, all right, here you go. He knew that if he didn't treat his injuries now, he might miss out on everything else. He didn't want to give up on this relic, so even though it hurt, he had to give the divine fruit to Su-Yun. Su-Yun nodded, then without further ado, immediately activated the healing spell. Healing spell, as the words fell, aurora light enveloped the expectant god of gale. Then, the gods witnessed his injuries, which would normally take a day or 2 to heal even with his divine constitution, begin to heal rapidly. First, the small wounds healed, then the gruesome gash on his waist and abdomen, until finally, not a trace of injury remained. The god of gale felt his healed body, his face filled with excitement. Although it wasn't the first time they had seen this, the gods were still astonished, their eyes filled with a mixture of amazement and envy. If I had this ability, what would I be afraid of in battle? The god of fire thought wistfully, then sighed. Blessing spells and this healing spell, the god of light is truly terrifying. The god of the forest was filled with envy, but also with apprehension. The god of the gale, on the other hand, felt an ever-growing sense of regret. Why did I offend this guy? If I hadn't, I would probably be enjoying the enhanced strength and healing spells like the god of fire and the others. He was filled with remorse, wishing he could turn back time to undo his past mistakes. Seeing that the god of the gale had recovered, Su-Yun turned to the god of fire. Next, we should think about how to get the divine fruit out. The gods nodded and flew together to the front of the divine tree. Su-Yun reached out and poked the air, and a ripple spread out, the protective shield changing from transparent to faintly visible. "I'll try first," said the god of the gale. After speaking, he unleashed the wind blade spell with all his might. Disregarding the number of blades, this wind blade was enormous. Even the gods, including Su-Yun, who were far away, could feel the strong wind blowing towards it, clearly indicating its formidable power. Go! The god of gale's mind stirred, and the enormous wind blade swiftly attacked the divine tree's protective shield. Boom! 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 The moment the two collided, a deafening roar resounded, and a thick layer of ripples spread out from the point where the wind blade touched the shield. But a few seconds later, the shield remained intact. Boom! The wind blade could no longer maintain its momentum and collapsed, unleashing an incredibly powerful hurricane that sent dust flying and objects scattering everywhere. Failed, the god of gale frowned deeply. The other gods, seeing this, also looked grim. Having withstood that attack, the shield showed no signs of damage, clearly still handling the situation with ease. Then, the god of forest and the god of fire, both in amplified states, tried, but the shield remained unmoved. What to do? The god of forest bit his lip. Hearing this, the old tortoise shook his head and sighed. "This shield is clearly beyond your ability to break. I think we should wait for the weaken period the god of fire mentioned." "Is there no other way?" the god of gale asked, unwilling to give up. "That's the only way," the god of fire agreed with the old tortoise and sighed. "Let's wait." The god of forest and the god of rain nodded in agreement, having no other choice but to resort to this method. Who would have thought that they, as third-level gods of a great tribe, couldn't even break through a single shield? It was truly frustrating. Seeing this situation, Su-Yun frowned, hesitated for a moment, and said, "I'll give it a try." Chapter 166. Even the god of light can do it? The gods were initially surprised, then overjoyed. "We almost forgot, god of light, you haven't tried yet," said the god of fire. "With your strength, even if you can't break this barrier, you'll definitely have a better chance than us." The other gods nodded in agreement. Although the barrier didn't seem like something a third-level god could break, the god of light's strength was outstanding among them, so there was still a sliver of hope for success. So the gods focused their attention on him, ready to see if his experiment would fail like theirs. The old tortoise, who had been so confident about the outcome, stopped shaking his head and felt a pang of unease. "I completely forgot. There's this freak who hasn't tried." Thinking of everything that had happened before, he couldn't even maintain his composure. This was a monster, no one knew if he could succeed. He seemed to exist specifically to defy common sense. "Am I going to embarrass myself again? No, why am I thinking about embarrassing myself again?" Just as the old tortoise was lost in thought, wondering if he would be proven wrong again, Su-Yun made his move in full view of everyone. "Holy flame!" The words had barely left his lips when a surging, milky white holy flame erupted, instantly engulfing the entire protective barrier. The surrounding temperature rose sharply, making even the helpless gods feel uncomfortable. "So it's this flame?" The gods were initially surprised, then hesitated. "I wonder if this strange flame can break through this barrier." The flame was indeed bizarre, but the barrier's strength was not to be underestimated. They weren't sure if they could succeed. The moment the holy flame touched the barrier, thick ripples appeared, making the entire barrier, previously invisible, incredibly visible. It burned fiercely for 7 or 8 seconds, but the barrier seemed completely unchanged. Su-Yun's expression shifted slightly, thinking to himself, "This barrier's powerful decomposition ability has failed." The other gods also showed disappointment. "It seems the god of light has failed," the god of gale said with mixed feelings, a strange sense of joy rising within him. Even the god of light, like him, could break through the shield. Even he can't. The god of fire was disappointed. The god of forest sighed. The god of rain's eyes widened slightly, filled with surprise. A hint of triumph flashed in the old tortoise's eyes, a feeling of victory. A dozen seconds passed, and the shield remained unchanged. Su-Yun frowned. "It seems the divine flame has failed. We'll have to try another divine spell." Just as he and the other gods thought they had failed and were about to withdraw the flames, a new change occurred. Whether it was an illusion or not, the shield seemed to dim slightly, almost as if it were a hallucination. "I feel like the shield has dimmed a little," the god of rain said uncertainly. Suyun stopped withdrawing the flames and exchanged surprised glances with the other gods. I saw it too, the god of fire said hesitantly. Me too, the god of forest nodded. That means the god of light's flames worked, the gods exclaimed in surprise. Although the effect wasn't obvious, it was a real intangible result, completely incomparable to their lack of change. Just as the gods looked at Suyun, he pondered for a moment and said, the consumption is too great, it will take too long to completely wear down this shield. The gods thought about it and realized it was indeed true, and they were disappointed once again. It seems we have no choice but to use that move. Suyun pondered for a moment, then waved his hand to dispel the holy flame, and the flames quickly subsided. Under the god's strange gazes, he flew to the front of the divine tree shield, within reach. What is the god of light doing? Just as they were wondering, Suyun calmly stretched out his hand and poked the shield in front of him with his finger. This scene made the other gods even more puzzled, looking at Suyun suspiciously, wondering what he was going to do. Suyun focused his attention, and the moment his index finger touched the shield, he instantly activated the eternal night character within his body. To conceal and reduce consumption, he focused only on the area where his finger touched the shield. After reducing the area, even with a high-level shield, his divine power only decreased slightly, allowing him to successfully complete the eternal night spell. He then activated a polar day spell. Without any surprise, a hole was instantly pierced through the shield. This scene, though seemingly lengthy, happened in almost an instant. To the god of fire and the others, the god of light inexplicably flew to the shield and strangely poked it with his finger. Then, a scene that made them question their existence unfolded. The part of the shield that the god of light poked seemed subtly wrong, and then the entire shield instantly materialized before they could examine it closely. A burst of white light erupted from Suyun's finger, followed by a series of crisp cracking sounds. Long, cracking marks appeared on the shield as the white light stretched it open, instantly covering the entire shield. Perhaps because the protective structure had been partially erased by the polar day spell, the expected repair of the shield didn't occur. The entire shield, after cracking. Boom. A deafening roar. Before the stunned eyes of the other gods, the shield shattered into pieces, then dissipated into specks of fluorescent light, vanishing into the air, a breathtakingly beautiful sight. However, no god appreciated this beauty, for their minds were completely blank at this moment. For Suyun, the operation was complex, but to the other gods, it was merely a simple poke. A finger poke, and it broke, the god of fire stammered, bewildered. The god of the forest paled, tightly covering his mouth. I'm dreaming, the god of gale muttered absently. If the god of light's strength was still traceable, allowing people to discern his power level, this scene immediately shrouded him in mystery, making everything an enigma. The god of rain's eyes widened so much they almost popped out of their sockets. If he were a modern person, he would have exclaimed "Holy crap!" to express his feelings. The old tortoise, having been slapped in the face once again, was speechless, staring incredulously at the god of light. He actually succeeded. Just how many more monstrous abilities does this guy have that he hasn't revealed yet? Just as they were questioning their existence, Suyun calmly withdrew his hand. Chapter 167 Strength Enhancement. Turning to look at the others, he noticed their expressions and realized he might have gone a bit too far. Feeling a little embarrassed, he said calmly, "All right, the shield is broken. Let's use the divine fruit." Oh, the god of fire responded blankly, then understood what he meant and immediately came to his senses. They flew to Suyun's side, temporarily forgetting about the divine fruit, and eagerly asked, You, how did you do that?" The god of fire asked in disbelief. "What did you use this time?" The old tortoise stared blankly. The remaining people didn't speak, but their expressions were all the same, shocked and curious. "Just a little ability, you don't need to worry about it." Suyun, of course, wouldn't reveal his trump card and replied vaguely. A little ability, a little ability. The gods, if this is a little ability, then what kind of useless abilities do they have? However, no matter how much they doubted their existence, and no matter how much they pressed, they couldn't get any information. They knew it might involve the secrets of the god of light, and could only regretfully bury their doubts in their hearts. After calming down, they finally had time to examine the divine tree. After only a glance, their attention shifted to the divine fruits. Suyun waved his hand, and a dense white light emerged, enveloping the entire tree. Then, with a thought, he plucked all the orange-yellow crescent-shaped divine fruits. Holding the fruits aloft in the white light, he carefully counted them. 19. Hearing this, the gods' faces lit up with joy. Suyun controlled the white light to distribute the fruits, saying to them, "As agreed, I've divided them. You can take a look." He moved the fruits in front of them, and the gods glanced at them. 6 fruits were in front of Suyun, 3 each for the other 4, and 1 was set aside separately. The reason he had so many was because, according to the previous agreement, he had faced 2 level 4 evil creatures alone, thus receiving 2 portions. The gods had no objections to this, it had been agreed upon long ago. Aside from some envy, no god went back on their word. Suyun turned to the god of Gale and said calmly, "According to the deal, 1 of your divine fruits belongs to me." With that, he took 1 of the god of Gale's 3 divine fruits, leaving the god of Gale with only 2, while Suyun himself had 7. What about the last one? Suyun looked at the last remaining fruit. The gods exchanged glances, and after a moment of silence, the god of fire spoke up. "God of light, you can have this divine fruit. After all, you contributed the most." He scratched his head and grinned. The god of forest pondered for a moment and nodded. "I agree." The god of Gale, though slightly unwilling, dared not continue his presumptuousness and could only nod in agreement. As for the god of rain, he remained silent, and the others ignored his opinion. After all, this was a world where strength spoke volumes, and Suyun's ability to obtain these fruits without them objecting was also due to his strength. The old tortoise, ignored and excluded, thought, although he wanted to ask why the divine fruit wasn't shared with him, he opened his mouth but then wisely closed it. He didn't want to be beaten. He'd lived this long because he was pragmatic, or rather, cowardly. Suyun, slightly surprised by their words, didn't feign politeness and nodded, accepting the divine fruit. Now he had 8 for himself. Seeing him accept them, the god of fire smiled and said to the other gods, "Try it out." The gods nodded, each holding a divine fruit. Suyun tried peeling it, and as soon as he did, a special energy seeped out, rapidly overflowing, causing his expression to change slightly. To prevent too much energy from dissipating, he quickly put the fruit in his mouth and bit into it. Instantly, a sweet and sour taste filled his mouth. It was incredibly delicious. It tastes a bit like a bayberry," Suyun remarked. As he ate it, he noticed that it resembled a banana, without a seed, just flesh inside the peel. The effects were immediate after consuming the entire divine fruit. Suyun was slightly surprised to find a special energy rapidly permeating his divine core space, seemingly attempting to transform it. However, with a slight tremor and hum from his divine core, the energy was repelled, unable to penetrate even a fraction. After confirming there were no adverse effects, he released the restriction. As the energy seeped into his divine core, its external size remained unchanged, only becoming slightly more radiant, while the internal space store and divine power expanded somewhat. After a brief examination, Suyun discovered that a single divine fruit had increased his total divine power by about 20%. The effect is so good. Opening his eyes in surprise, he saw that the other gods shared a similar expression of astonishment. Seeing such a good effect, Suyun quickly took out another one. After this one also took effect, he frowned. The effect is weakening. The god of fire's expression turned grim. If the first time was an accident, the increasingly weaker effect made him realize something. The god's expressions were all somewhat unpleasant. Suyun frowned. This one only had about 17% of its original effect. He was somewhat disappointed, but it was also within his expectations. If this divine fruit could truly continue to increase indefinitely, wouldn't a large number of divine fruits easily negate the difference in level? Without much thought, he directly ate the rest. After eating, he sensed the effect. It's about doubled. He was in a good mood. This doubling of divine power storage would greatly enhance his divine arts. Divine arts that consumed a lot of energy would become more routine, and his strength had increased significantly. It's just a bit of a pity, the more I eat, the lower the increase becomes. Suyun shook his head, somewhat regretful. If there were more of these and the effect didn't weaken, it might have been able to elevate him to the point where he could fight against a 4th-level god. Even now, after such a significant improvement, while he still couldn't defeat a 4th-level god, his survival ability had increased dramatically. This ruin is truly a wonderful place. It has instantly narrowed the gap between me and a 4th-level god. I wonder what other treasures await. His eyes were filled with anticipation. If there were more things like this, what was a 4th-level god? He could still launch a counterattack and defeat someone of a higher level. With anticipation, he took one last look at the divine tree and said, "Let's go." The gods nodded. Their increased strength had boosted their confidence considerably. Then, they flew deeper into the ruins. As for the divine tree itself, it was unclear whether the other gods had truly overlooked it or, like Suyun, harbored their own ambitions. At 7 or 8 meters high, beyond the reach of their storage bags, they didn't mention the divine tree. Chapter 168. Deep within the ruins. Along the way, the gods all took out their faith crystals, wanting to replenish their divine power. After such a long period of consumption, their divine power was almost depleted. Suyun took out 18 of the 48 level 3 faith crystals and crushed them. After absorbing this faith power, he was surprised to find that even after spending so many level 3 faith crystals, he hadn't fully replenished his depleted divine power. It was still short. According to his estimation, to completely replenish his divine power, he would need to consume 24 level 3 faith crystals, or 4 level 4 faith crystals. Suyun glanced at them and found that everyone's expressions were similar, all caught in a happy dilemma. To reduce consumption, an idea suddenly came to him. Suyun smiled slightly and said, "If the upcoming battles aren't too difficult, I'll leave them to you. I'll help you strengthen yourselves and heal your injuries from behind." Upon hearing this, the other gods were slightly taken aback. After a moment's thought, they all felt this allocation was quite good. They didn't feel it was unfair. With Suyun's strength boost and healing, they could fight more freely, their confidence immediately increasing. They even inwardly marveled at how considerate Suyun was of them. Is the god of light afraid of discouraging us? That's true. If he handles everything from now on, what chance do we have? Thinking this, they felt a surge of gratitude. Suyun, unaware of their thoughts, smiled upon seeing their agreement. He softly said, "Blessing." Without another word, he cast a blessing spell. In the blink of an eye, 30% of his full divine power was selectively consumed, equivalent to 60% of his previous strength. The god's eyes lit up with joy, anticipating the dazzling light emanating from Suyun. Seeing the light approaching them, they didn't choose to dodge. The god of Gale was thrilled. The god of light didn't miss me this time. He had long wanted to experience this blessing spell, and this time his wish had finally come true. If Suyun knew what he was thinking, he would definitely mutter, "If you want a horse to run, you can't expect it to run without feeding it." As the dazzling light enveloped the gods, a powerful sense of strength immediately arose in their hearts. Even the god of fire and the god of forest, whose blessing spell was still in effect but had been partially overridden, felt it even more acutely. "The power has increased," the god of fire exclaimed. "The effect of this blessing spell has indeed been enhanced." The god of forest and the god of fire exchanged a glance, their eyes filled with astonishment. The god of Gale was stunned, feeling his power nearly double. For the first time, he realized that he could be this strong, and a feeling of expansion immediately arose in his heart. Hearing the words of the god of fire and the others, he was secretly surprised. This divine spell hasn't reached its limit yet. They all looked deeply at Suyun, their eyes flashing with envy and awe. No one knew if this blessing spell was the limit of the god of light. The previous effect had improved, so wouldn't that mean it could be improved even further? Who could be sure Suyun hadn't held back? They couldn't help but feel awe. The god of rain and the old tortoise felt similarly. A simple "holy crap" would basically sum it up. Suyun himself noticed the effect and was somewhat satisfied. A 30% improvement meant a doubling of the effect. Activating the blessing spell with all his divine power would be equivalent to more than 3 times. Just thinking about it made him gasp, his heart filled with astonishment at his own divine spell. Only terrifyingly powerful could describe his current feelings. Compared to the tenfold difference at level 4, this was a huge leap forward. Combined with the advantage of the divine spell, although he might still lose, he was confident he could escape. "Give me some more divine fruits and holy water, not too much? As long as I can increase my divine power by 1 or 2 times, I'll show you how I can defeat a level 4 god." Thinking this with anticipation, he quickly called out, and then they continued their journey. Then, regardless of whether it was a level 1, 2, 3, or even a level 4 evil creature, Vulcan and his companions would carry the lead while they comfortably flew behind, much like they had hired a group of thugs. This was what was called going through the motions without putting in any effort, and so, Suyun followed Vulcan and his group, effortlessly winning all the way to the depths of the ruins. As they arrived, the surrounding environment changed. Various unique and exquisite architectural decorations suddenly appeared in abundance. "Hey, there are some murals over there." The old tortoise looked around and suddenly noticed something. Hearing this, the gods quickly looked in the direction he was looking. Not far away, amidst the ruins, seemingly a corridor, came a series of murals, still vibrant and dazzling. These murals were very likely about a sea god, and might answer some questions for them. Let's go take a look," Vulcan said impatiently. The gods nodded, and just as they were about to walk over to see the murals, the old tortoise suddenly exclaimed again. There they are, not far from the corridor. Figures dressed in tattered blue clothes were lying on the ground nearby. This scene successfully captured their attention, even temporarily forgetting the murals, as they curiously walked over to observe. But after just one glance, their expressions changed slightly. Corpses, Su-Yun felt a sting in his eyes, as if they had been contaminated. Upon closer inspection, these figures lying on the walls or the ground were all dressed in tattered clothes, their bodies withered and blackened, resembling dried corpses. Some even had their eyes open, two dark holes seemingly staring straight at you, creating a rather eerie scene. If an ordinary modern person saw this, they would probably have a nightmare. Fortunately, as gods, they were naturally unafraid of such things, feeling only a sense of disgust. "These people are followers of the sea god," the old tortoise asserted after a glance. Although their clothes were somewhat tattered, he still recognized them. The gods nodded, then carefully scanned them, discovering that these people all possessed a dark and cold aura, clearly having died at the hands of evil beings. Su-Yun thought so too, but just as he was about to examine what was on these people, he suddenly paused. Even after so long since their deaths, the dark, chilling aura still lingered. Su-Yun opened his mouth, about to say something, when a sudden change occurred. Beams of eerie blue light emerged from the eye sockets of each body, and simultaneously, an even darker, colder, and more powerful aura erupted from them. "Be careful," Su-Yun warned, then carefully sensed the aura of these dozen or so resurrected corpses. His expression immediately changed. Not only him, but the other gods' faces also turned grim. "Level 5 aura," the god of fire exclaimed. Among these dozen or so sea gods' follower corpses, 3 actually emanated a level 5 aura, comparable to the strength of a level 4 god. As for the other corpses, quite a few were comparable to level 3 gods. Chapter 169 Danger and the Gods' Trump Cards. Su-Yun was secretly shocked. Although he knew the sea god was powerful, he hadn't expected that even the dead believers could exude such a powerful aura. He wondered if they were even stronger when they were alive. Thinking of this, he became curious and doubtful about the sea god's level of existence. Before he could think further, he heard the fire gods roar, "Run!" Hearing this, everyone, including Su-Yun, was prepared and immediately retreated quickly, trying to avoid these powerful corpses. Unfortunately, although they reacted quickly, the corpses weren't much slower, especially the 3 level 5 beings, who were about to catch up with them in an instant. Before they could even use divine spells to block, the 3 level 5 corpses, with their tall skeletons and much better preserved bodies than the others, attacked first. Roar! 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 After a few strange roars, one of them wielded a long sword of unknown material and swiftly slashed at them. In an instant, a massive, deep, jet-black crescent moon hurtled straight towards the gods, its terrifying aura causing them to pale in horror. Weakening spell, Holy Flame. Without hesitation, Su-Yun unleashed a double attack. The aurora, with astonishing speed, instantly reached the 3 level 5 undead. The undead reacted quickly, a hint of disdain flashing in their eyes. They immediately unleashed a dense, dark, and evil energy, blocking the attack. Just as they finished, the 3 undead were about to continue their attack as usual, but then something unexpected happened. The aurora pierced through the dark energy and shone directly on them. Before they could react, a feeling of weakness instantly spread through them, their auras weakening. This situation startled the undead, and their attacks slowed. "It's a divine spell from the god of light." The sudden decrease in the 3 undead's aura brought joy to the faces of the god of fire and the others. However, their joy was short-lived, as the blade's edge was about to strike, and Su-Yun's healing spell had no effect on weakening the attack. It was a true level 5 full-force strike. The gods quickly intervened. The god of fire unleashed a raging torrent of flames, the god of gale glanced at the divine flame, and instinctively unleashed a massive tornado. The god of forest sent forth a net-like network of thick, tree-like green vines towards the dark crescent moon. As for the god of rain, he cast a rainstorm spell, which was better than nothing. Although they were incredibly powerful with the blessing spell, after launching their attacks, they still had no confidence that they could withstand the crescent moon. The difference in power between the two stages was simply too great. Even with their combined attack, their chances of victory were extremely low. The divine flame was the first to come into contact with the terrifying crescent moon, and without any hesitation, it was cleaved apart. However, the flames it encountered during this process constantly weakened and decomposed it, causing its overall strength and aura to diminish. The flames of the fire god were similarly rendered ineffective. Just as the god's expressions changed drastically, filled with disappointment, the tornado of the gale god, after absorbing the holy flame and the fire god's flames, crashed directly into the dark crescent moon. Boom! 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 Deafening sounds echoed throughout the heavens and earth. With the added speed of the wind, the special effects of the holy flame were amplified many times over. Shortly after the collision, the energy and aura on the dark crescent moon decreased at an alarming rate. Until the tornado was completely shattered, and the gale and flames scattered, the aura on the dark crescent moon had weakened to its limit, and even its size had shrunk considerably. Then, a massive net of vines slammed into a PFFT, everything was gone. The rain god's rainstorm spell, needless to say, had negligible effect. It seemed the god's attacks had all failed, but this time they showed no disappointment. Instead, they all breathed a sigh of relief. The aura is still a bit stronger, but it no longer threatens us, thanks to the light god's flame effect. After Su-Yun and the fire god used their defensive moves, the two forces barely dissipated. Together, they successfully withstood an attack comparable to a fourth-level god. Roar! The corpse roared angrily. The few insects before it had actually withstood its attack. Damn it! Hearing the roar and seeing the three about to attack together, this time, they couldn't withstand it. The fire god and the others' expressions changed drastically. Everyone, don't hide anything you have, the fire god shouted urgently. Su-Yun hesitated slightly, then his eyes hardened. I'll risk it all. He took out all 33rd level faith crystals from his storage bag at once. Just as he was about to attack, he subconsciously glanced at the fire god and the others, then looked puzzled. He saw that the three of them had each taken out an item. The god of fire wielded a fiery red longsword, while the god of the forest held a delicate green circular wreath adorned with colorful wildflowers, a truly beautiful sight. The god of the forest wore it on his head. The god of the gale held something resembling a scepter. Su-Yun's eyes flickered as he secretly thought, these items are their trump cards. Although he didn't know what they were, he sensed a strong power of faith emanating from these three items, giving him a vague guess. Before he could finish his thought, the three gods had already attacked. The god of fire's sword glowed with a rich red light, and then he swung it out. Boom! A blade of fire, equally powerful, was unleashed. While not as strong as the previous black crescent, it was still several times stronger than a normal level 3 divine spell. The god of gale waved his scepter, instantly unleashing a fierce gale. A massive vortex of wind blades, like a divine dragon, radiated power similar to the fire blade, its aura terrifying. The god of forest also attacked, unleashing the exact same divine spell as before. However, before it was released, the wreath in his long hair emitted a strong emerald green light. Boom! A divine spell, several times more powerful, attacked forward. Seeing their actions, Su-Yun didn't slow down much. While the god of fire and the others were using their attacks, he shattered all 30 level 3 faith crystals. A vast, surging power of faith immediately erupted. With a thought, Su-Yun channeled the power of faith into his body, replenishing his previously depleted divine power in the blink of an eye, with more than enough. Feeling the vast amount of faith power still unconverted within him, Su-Yun gazed at the 3 level 5 corpses, comparable to level 4 gods, and murmured softly, "Come on, let me see just how vast a gap is between a level 4 god and me." With that, he activated the blessing spell within his body. Boom! The divine power within him instantly surged, then rapidly decreased in the blink of an eye, quickly disappearing completely. Su-Yun didn't stop. If you're going to do it even harder. The blessing spell hasn't reached its limit yet. Thinking this, the remaining vast amount of faith power was converted into divine power in the blink of an eye. A full 2 bars of divine power. The newly depleted divine essence within him caused a slight smile to appear on Su-Yun's lips. Just as the fire god and the others launched their attacks, his blessing spell was ready. With this blessing spell, I wonder how strong I'll be. Su-Yun's fighting spirit surged. Chapter 170 The Art of Pay to Win. Just as Su-Yun was about to unleash his blessing spell, the corpses in the distance, facing the three powerful attacks coming their way, immediately launched a furious counterattack. Streams of dark, malevolent energy surged from their bodies, each countering one of the attacks. Boom, boom, boom. The 6 attacks collided, the deafening sound echoing through the heavens, the aftershocks of energy causing the god of rain and the old turtle, hiding in the rear, to tremble. At this moment, they, along with the god of fire, were all intently watching the battle, not daring to move an inch. The moment the attacks clashed, a scene of despair unfolded. The fiery red blade light only lasted a breath or two before being shattered and submerged by the dark energy. The wind blade tornado and the vines of the god of forest also didn't last long. In their eyes, they were almost powerless against the engulfment. What to do? The god of fire and the others couldn't help but feel despair. Although they hadn't originally thought they could contend with something equivalent to a 4th-level god, they never imagined the gap in power would be so vast. It's over, it's over. The old tortoise's eyes were filled with terror, its limbs trembling nervously. The gods all knew that given the current disparity in strength, their chances of escape were slim. Someone was certain to die at the hands of these 3 corpses. Despair was inevitable. Seeing their attack succeed, the 3 corpses roared excitedly. Roar! 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 They excitedly commanded their dark energy, charging wildly towards the god of fire and the others. Just as the gods were at a loss, Su-Yun, knowing time was of the essence, quickly cast a blessing spell on himself. A dazzling light emanated from him, brightening the surrounding area and causing the despairing gods to instinctively look at him. Then, they were instantly speechless. Boom! A powerful and terrifying aura suddenly erupted from Su-Yun, its force like a raging storm, surging outwards and leaving the gods' faces blank with shock. The surrounding air was slightly distorted by that powerful aura. What a terrifying aura! The god of fire couldn't hold back any longer and exclaimed in shock. The god of light's aura, how can it be so strong? The gap between us is so vast. The god of forest and the god of gale exclaimed in unison. The old tortoise's eyelids twitched. Only I've seen a ghost could express his feelings at that moment. This guy is a monster. The god of rain was even more awestruck, filled with worship and awe. They could all feel that the aura emanating from the god of light was far beyond their reach, incredibly powerful, it's a bit like a 4th-level god. This thought made them find it hard to believe. If Su-Yun knew what they were thinking, he would definitely say, "Don't ask, it's all about money. If you don't have enough strength, make up for it with money." With his blessing spell, he has managed to reach a point where he can barely contend with a 4th-level god. Su-Yun felt a pang of regret as he felt the power within him. Although his divine power was depleted, it didn't hinder his current strength. He quickly estimated that his power had increased almost 7-fold. Even a 4th-level god was no longer insurmountable compared to him. The gap had been wiped out by nearly half. Before he could even process more, the overwhelming dark energy from the opposing side was almost upon him. Su-Yun reacted swiftly, and amidst the astonished gazes of the surrounding gods, he directly retrieved 4 4th-level faith crystals from his storage bag. Crack! 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 4 soft sounds rang out instantly, and an immense surge of faith power was exposed in the air, only to be absorbed by him in the next instant. In less than a breath, his depleted divine power was replenished in the blink of an eye. Just then, the attack from the opposing side came almost face to face. The god of fire and the others, disregarding their shock, immediately unleashed their defensive techniques, attempting to withstand the dark, evil energy boom. 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 Whether it was plants, fire shields, or wind shields, they all crumbled within a breath or two, the dark energy about to engulf them. "Leave it to me," Su-Yun said softly. Hearing his words and feeling the terrifying aura emanating from him, a glimmer of hope appeared in the eyes of the gods, who placed all their hopes on him. Su-Yun didn't waste any more words and directly unleashed his divine flame. Divine flame, the surging, milky white divine flame rushed towards the dark energy. The moment the two made contact, a sizzling sound immediately rang out. They were like oil on a hot pan meeting water, annihilating each other. However, to be fair, Su-Yun's divine flame perfectly countered the dark energy in both attributes and special effects. In fact, this was even with the energy under the healing spell of weakness. However, due to the difference in strength and the combined power of the 3 corpses, even though his flames were more powerful, they were temporarily suppressed by the dark energy and forced to retreat repeatedly. Su-Yun had anticipated this and quickly unleashed another move. Golden Wheel. In an instant, 3 small golden orbs appeared beside him, then flew in front of everyone. In the blink of an eye, they merged into a huge golden shield, blocking their way. Boom! The dark energy crashed into the golden shield, immediately launching an erosion attack, trying to destroy it. But unfortunately, the golden shield's properties not only countered their attacks but also carried intense heat, making it incredibly difficult to destroy amidst the sizzling sounds. Run! Seeing that the golden wheel had temporarily blocked the dark energy, Su-Yun turned and called out to Vulcan and the others. Oh! Vulcan and the others subconsciously responded and hurriedly fled. On the way, they finally came to their senses, staring at Su-Yun, who was still holding off the attack, their eyes filled with shock. The fact that Su-Yun and the corpse were fighting on equal terms had greatly shocked them. Although it seemed that the God of Light was still no match for them, he had already put up a fight. The gods breathed a sigh of relief, yet could not believe what they were seeing. Seeing their attack blocked by the insects, the 3 corpses were filled with rage. Just then, the other dozen or so corpses they had previously left behind caught up. Not good. Seeing this, the God of Fire and the others' faces turned incredibly grim. The God of Light was already struggling against 3 beings comparable to 4th-level gods, and it seemed he wouldn't last long. A slight misstep could lead to his demise. Now, with the addition of those corpses comparable to 3rd or 2nd-level gods, it was like the final straw. Enough to crush the God of Light. The God of Light absolutely could not fall, or they would truly have no hope left. Chapter 171 I said, light and darkness will separate. Thinking of this, they hurriedly cried out in alarm, God of Light, be careful, don't die. The God of Fire and the others wanted to rush forward to help and rescue the God of Light. Su-Yun naturally noticed the newly joined corpses as well, and his mood soured. He had originally planned to rely on other divine arts to fight them, to see just how big the gap was between him and a 4th-level god. After all, with his current strength, even if he couldn't win, he could barely hold out for a short time. But with the addition of the other corpses, the balance was immediately broken, forcing him to abandon this idea. There's no other way, I can only use my last trump card. Su-Yun sighed inwardly, then his expression turned solemn. He concentrated his consciousness on the Eternal Night Talisman. In an instant, the divine power within his body decreased at an alarming rate, almost reaching its limit in the blink of an eye, making his eyelids twitch. This was even with his greatly increased strength, otherwise, the divine power consumed would have been even more terrifying. Without a word, he directly opened the small black sphere, absorbing the remaining power of faith. Still not confident, he swiftly retrieved 4 level 4 faith crystals. He crushed them. Seeing its companions arrive, the corpses roared excitedly a few times, then glared ferociously at Su-Yun, their eyes filled with smugness and triumph. It seemed to say, you're absolutely doomed. Streams of dark energy erupted from their bodies. The fire god and the others were filled with worry and quickly turned back. However, just as their expressions varied, a holy and indifferent voice resounded throughout the heavens and earth. I say, light and darkness will separate. The words fell. In an instant, darkness descended upon the world. This darkness was so profound that the blackness on the corpses seemed like a child compared to it, so small and powerless. At this moment, the world seemed to have returned to the primordial chaos before the world was even born, a time when only absolute darkness shrouded everything. The corpses stared blankly at the surrounding darkness, their movements and roars frozen. The God of Fire and the others were first stunned, then utterly horrified. What's going on? Why is it so dark? Even with their divine eyes, they couldn't see anything in this darkness. If it weren't for their still present senses, they would have thought they had been transported to some unknown place. But knowing that the location hadn't changed only made them more confused, not knowing what had happened. That sentence just now, the God of Fire hesitated. The gods were startled, then their minds raced, all recalling that sentence. It was the voice of the God of Light. He, the God of Rain, murmured softly. They all realized that the one who caused this scene was definitely the God of Light. What had he done? What did he want to do? The gods finished thinking in horror, and couldn't help but look towards the only light in the darkness. Then, they had never felt as at this moment that light was so dazzling, like the center of the world. Before they could wait long, another indifferent voice resounded throughout the heavens and earth. I say, light and darkness will reunite. As soon as the sacred voice faded, endless radiance burst forth from the sole source of light in the darkness. Light. Light. as far as the eye could see. Darkness was rapidly enveloped by the light, like the arrival of dawn. The light was dazzling yet not blinding, gently illuminating everything, allowing the fire god and the others to see clearly. When a ray of light shone on the corpse standing at the forefront, a wisp of dust suddenly drifted off, extremely inconspicuous. But as more and more dust rose, it successfully attracted everyone's attention. Dust appeared on all the corpses, from low level to level 4 and even level 5. Roars of terror erupted from their mouths. The 3 level 5 corpses at the forefront desperately released dark, evil energy, trying to dispel this anomaly. Unfortunately, it was all in vain. No matter how much energy they released, the dust continued to accumulate. Whether it was the god of fire or the corpses, they were all astonished to see that as the dust increased, their body parts also disappeared. It turned out that this wasn't dust at all, it was their own bodies transformed. Realizing this, the corpses were immediately filled with fear, sensing the impending death. Even the gods, upon seeing this, felt a chill run down their spines, their faces filled with horror. The corpses' bodies rapidly dissipated, arms, thighs, chests, one by one. Under the light, wisps of dust filled the sky as they collapsed. Bang! 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 As soon as they fell, they were like bodies made of dust, their entire bodies smashed into dust. As time passed, when the last 3 level 5 corpses, with half-dead bodies, glanced at Su-Yun with resentment and unwillingness, bang bang! Bang! The 3 of them fell one after another, dust filled the sky, and the world seemed to empty out for a moment. 3 level 5 corpses, equivalent to level 4 gods, were dead. The gods stared in shock at the scene, a sense of horror washing over them as they looked at the light, their eyes filled with fear. "We seem to have been bathed in light too," someone said, startling them so much they hurriedly checked themselves. They were all right. After checking for a while, they finally breathed a sigh of relief. Even so, looking at the still shining warm light around them, they were filled with dread. As the light gradually faded, the gods, seeing Su-Yun slowly flying towards them, all took a step back in fright. "God of light, you," the god of fire pointed at him nervously, his voice trembling. "Don't come any closer," the god of gale shuddered. The god of forest covered his mouth tightly, his beautiful eyes filled with terror. The old tortoise immediately withdrew its limbs, shrinking into its shell, its dark eyes no longer daring to look at him. The god of rain shuddered and hid behind the god of fire. Su-Yun's lips twitched slightly as he watched their actions and the fear in their eyes, feeling a sense of helplessness. Seeing that they wouldn't recover for a while, he focused his attention on the spot where the corpses had perished. He was going to retrieve 2 pieces of loot. While casting the Eternal Night spell, he noticed 2 items on the corpses that emitted a peculiar hidden light. One was the sword emitting a blade's edge, and the other was a ring worn by one of the 3 level 5 corpses. Noticing the unusual hidden light, he hadn't extinguished it, so the 2 items were still intact. Su-Yun quickly flew over. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 172 Divine Artifact. With a wave of his hand, 2 items on the ground were lifted by a white light and placed in his hand. Su-Yun first examined the longsword, noticing that its blade was entirely black, slightly translucent, and made of a very unusual material. He sensed a strong, malevolent energy emanating from it, giving it an ominous aura. As for the ring, Su-Yun turned to examine it closely. It was a white ring with a yellow stone set in it, which appeared to be a gemstone. As soon as he noticed the gemstone, he felt something was amiss. The yellow gemstone gave him an unusual feeling. Something was wrong. Instinctively, he released his divine power and poured it into the ring without hesitation. Instantly, the yellow gemstone began to glow, and the next moment, Su-Yun sensed a space within it. After a quick estimation, he found that this space had an area of at least 10 cubic meters, and even contained some items. A look of surprise flashed across his face. He hadn't expected it to be a special item. Those things. Su-Yun glanced at the items, then his disappointment faded. He discovered that almost everything inside the ring was corroded and dilapidated by time, clearly useless. The reason for saying almost was that he found one thing completely intact. Faith crystals, a small pile of faith crystals, clearly of a high level just by looking at them. Seeing this, his previously depressed mood instantly lifted. This battle had been a huge loss for him. Not only had he lost all his level 3 faith crystals, but he was also left with only 3 level 4 ones, a massive loss. He had thought he was going to suffer a major blow, but now, with a small pile of high-level faith crystals, he could make up for his losses, and might even make a profit. However, with the others still there, he couldn't very well take the faith crystals out to examine them. Just as he was examining the 2 items, Vulcan and the others, having recovered somewhat, flew towards him. Suyun stopped examining the items and turned to look at them. Vulcan, somewhat embarrassed, chuckled and said, "Haha, sorry about earlier, it was just that the feeling you gave us was so overwhelming, we weren't quite there yet, don't mind." The other gods also nodded apologetically. The god of fire looked at him nervously, rubbing his hands together. "God of light, you actually killed those 3 level 5 guys. Your strength," he still couldn't believe it. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he would never have believed a level 3 god could kill 3 at once. And why was the god of light, a level 3 god, so terrifying? His attack that night was truly terrifying. A level 3 god killing guys comparable to level 4 gods, the god of forest still felt a lingering shock. "How did you do that?" At this, the other gods perked up their ears, staring intently at Suyun. They all wanted to know why, if they could do it too. The thought excited them. Suyun's lips twitched slightly, and he sighed inwardly, "With that fighting power just now, if I used it a few more times, I'd go bankrupt." In short, it's all about spending money. Just as he was about to shake his head and refuse to answer the question, the god of rain then weakly said, "I think I just saw the radiance of a blessing spell, could it be?" Hearing his words, everyone thought about it carefully and realized that it seemed to be true. At that time, the god of light did indeed have a brilliant radiance of a blessing spell, but they had missed it at the time. Now, reminded of it, they immediately recalled it. It seemed that at that moment, the god of light's aura surged. Hiss, no way, blessing spell. Thinking of this divine spell, their expressions were now blank and shocked. They stared blankly at Suyun, almost speechless. If there really was such a monstrous divine spell that could increase one's strength by so much, that would be one thing, but the divine spells of light and darkness seemed even more terrifying. "We must never provoke the god of light again, we must befriend the Yanhuang tribe when we get back." They all had similar thoughts in their minds. Suyun quickly changed the subject. "Do you know what this is?" He picked up the dark longsword and showed it to them. "This thing," the god of fire hesitated for a moment, "this thing doesn't have the power of faith on it, so it shouldn't be a divine artifact, but it's also possible that the power of faith has dissipated due to the passage of time. This sword might have been forged from some special part of an evil creature or a strange beast," he guessed uncertainly. "My opinion is similar to the god of fires." The god of the forest stared at the long sword. "Even if this sword isn't a divine artifact, it can be nurtured as a potential one. I see that you, god of light, don't seem to have any divine artifacts, so this sword should be very useful to you." "Divine artifacts?" Suyun looked at what they were holding. "The things in your hands, are they divine artifacts?" "That's right." The god of fire nodded in confirmation first, and then explained. "The most crucial element in the creation of a divine artifact is the faith of our people. The more faith power gathers on an object, the easier it is to become a divine artifact. Also important is the material. The better the material, the shorter the time it takes to become a divine artifact. As for divine artifacts, each one has a special effect, and using them can amplify our individual strength. If it has accumulated enough faith power, it can unleash power far exceeding our own without consuming our divine power. Unfortunately, our 3 divine artifacts have only recently taken shape, and we haven't accumulated enough faith power yet, otherwise we wouldn't have been in such a sorry state just now." Suyun listened thoughtfully, having roughly understood what divine artifacts were. "It's roughly similar to the birth of a god. It can also accumulate faith power, and the more faith power, the greater its power. Normally, it's driven by the user's divine power, but if the artifact accumulates enough faith power, it can unleash power surpassing the user's own." Thinking this, he suddenly realized something. The more faith power, the greater the power in the real world. Suyun thought of those mythical artifacts in the real world. If those things could all become divine artifacts, how powerful would they be? The Holy Grail, the Crown of Thorns, the Spear of Langsnuki, the Ark of the Covenant, the Spear of Eternity, Thor's Hammer, Zeus's Scepter, the Wheel of Fortune. Chapter 173 The Secret of the True God Revealed. Thinking about the various powerful yet bizarre artifacts in the real world, he couldn't help but feel dizzy. If he could find these mythical items and make them into real artifacts. Isn't that possible? Su-yoon wanted to deny this absurd possibility, but the thought of actually acquiring these artifacts made him want to go to the modern world to find them and see if it was really possible. If it were true, he would be incredibly rich. Just as Su-yoon's thoughts drifted to the modern world, the god of fire added, "The god of the forest is right, god of light. If you don't have any artifacts, this weapon is indeed a good choice. I think its material is quite extraordinary. It won't take long to become an artifact. This is also your spoils of war. Choosing it is indeed a good choice." They owed their survival to Su-yoon, so naturally no one would object to taking a share of what he had. They weren't that shameless. Su-yoon looked down at the longsword, lost in thought, just as all the gods thought he would make this choice. He suddenly said, "No, I'm not used to using knives. If you want one, you can trade it with me for a crystal of faith." The gods were stunned, almost thinking they had misheard. The god of light was going to sell this item. "You're going to sell this?" the god of the forest asked incredulously. Su-yoon nodded to them. The god of fire couldn't hold back any longer and asked curiously, "You already have your own divine artifact?" "No," a calm and decisive voice rang out. The gods, "Then why?" The god of fire looked puzzled. "This thing isn't suitable for me," Su-yoon repeated his previous answer. "Well, actually, he just thought this thing wasn't very good. It was useless to him given his strength." The gods immediately expressed disbelief. He didn't have a divine artifact, and it wasn't suitable either. Did the god of light really not want this thing? But how could that be? This was a pretty good divine artifact prototype. How could any god not want it? Did he have something better? Regardless of their doubts, with Su-yoon deciding to sell this item, they naturally began to compete for it with great joy. The first to be eliminated was the god of gale, who had been tricked by Su-yoon earlier. The second to lose the competition was the god of forest, and the final winner was the god of fire, who successfully traded 100 level 3 faith crystals from Su-yoon for the item. No one was surprised by this result. As a traveling merchant tribe, the god of fire's tribe naturally had the most faith crystals among the gods, so winning wasn't surprising. Su-yoon smiled and accepted the large pile of level 3 faith crystals, placing them in his storage bag. A quick recovery, a huge profit. Whether it was a loss or a gain, it was a win-win situation for both of them, a mutually beneficial arrangement. "Let's go see the murals," the god of fire said impatiently. "Finally, we can see what's there." The other gods subconsciously looked at Su-yoon, and after he nodded, they all flew towards the murals. Upon reaching their destination, the gods descended from the sky to a foot above the ground, slowly observing the murals. Su-yoon glanced around and found that most of the murals were well preserved, with incredibly vibrant colors. Even the artist's skill was quite good, far surpassing that of the stick figures. A human figure could barely be discerned. After looking at it for a while, he noticed some strange runes. Huh? Su-yoon was somewhat surprised, realizing he could actually understand the meaning of these runes. Turning his head, he saw the same surprised expressions on the faces of the gods, and immediately knew it wasn't an accident. He couldn't help but observe more closely, and then discovered something unusual about the runes. "There's a special power in these runes," Su-yoon said. "Perhaps it's because of this that we can understand these runes." This energy was imprisoned within the runes, seemingly allowing people to automatically understand their meaning at first glance, much like spiritual power. The gods nodded in agreement, then quickly began to examine the meaning of the runes. "Praise be to the sea god, you are the embodiment of the ocean, the supreme ruler." They discovered that most of these runes praised the sea god, describing his majesty. The gods, including Su-yoon, felt a chill run down their spines, their expressions somewhat embarrassed. At the same time, they had to admit that the person who carved these runes was definitely a talent, and a slight sense of envy arose in their hearts. After praising the sea god to the extreme at the beginning, the following part was more normal, and some important deeds began to appear. Su-yoon and the others quickly skipped over these and began to look for the part of information they needed, the part about the true god. After a while, they came to the last mural, and the runic information on it made their eyes light up at first glance. The ending was also praise, but the meaning on it was unbelievable. "Almighty sea god, you are the embodiment of the rules of the ocean, you are immortal, you are the supreme and eternal true god." Upon seeing this last paragraph, the scene fell silent. The fire god and the others frowned, their expressions somewhat puzzled, not quite understanding these words. "Rules," Su Yun murmured in surprise. These two words deeply attracted his attention, making him unable to look away. The Vulcans and the others were puzzled, but seeing his expression, their eyes lit up. God of Light, you understand this sentence, what does it mean? If I understand correctly, Su Yun took a deep breath and looked directly at them, saying, it means that the sea god is the ocean itself. You might not understand that, so let me put it another way, you all know what light is, right? Seeing them nod, Su Yun continued, if I were a true god, then I would be the light of this world. Light is me, and I am light, no wonder it says that true gods are immortal. If I become light itself, who can kill me? Su Yun said, somewhat shocked. He finally understood why the old tortoise had said the sea god was immortal. If what was said above is true, then the sea god really isn't dead. Other things are unknown, but if the sea god were truly dead, the ocean he represents would definitely be in serious trouble. How could the world remain safe and sound? Su Yun even suspected that as long as the ocean, or even water in general, exists, the sea god is the kind of being who will never die. Immortal and indestructible. Regardless of his emotional turmoil, after Su Yun explained things more bluntly, the fire god and the others gradually understood something. This is true, this is a true god. They were equally shocked, finding it difficult to comprehend the sea god's greatness. If it was truly as the god of light described, then what level was the sea god? They gasped. Thank you Ki for the 988 book coins. Thank you Lululu for the 688 book coins. Thank you Ahanguluo for the 200 Kidian coins. Thank you everyone. Chapter 174 A Chance Encounter with the Enemy. I told you I was right, didn't I? A smug glint flashed in the old tortoise's eyes. These things may be rumors, but they must be true. Even without these, the sea god's strength far surpasses yours. Upon hearing this, the gods all frowned and fell silent. If he's truly immortal, why did the sea god disappear? The god of fire couldn't help but wonder. The old tortoise was somewhat embarrassed. He didn't know what had happened either. Su Yun pondered for a moment and said softly, the sea god's realm is too far removed from ours. We can't possibly know about that realm. Perhaps there's some secret. The god sighed and nodded, understanding the logic. Now that we've finished looking around, let's continue searching and see if there are any other benefits, the god of fire suggested. This was unanimously agreed upon by the gods. After discussing it, they chose a direction and continued their journey. That god of fear, I wonder where he went. Honestly, we've been searching for so long and still haven't found him, a burly young man complained. The cold and handsome god of shadows also looked somewhat uneasy. That guy couldn't have died at the hands of some evil creature, could he? Forget it, let's focus on finding the treasure and ignore that guy. We should have done that sooner, the god of blood said happily. After saying that, they flew deeper into the ruins. After flying for an unknown amount of time, they suddenly discovered something. In the distance, several figures faintly appeared in their sight. As they drew closer, they recognized who they were. It's the gods of fire. The god of shadow's face was grim. At the same time, he and the god of blood became extremely vigilant. Because they discovered that besides himself, there were two other familiar figures in the god of fire's group. Damn it, there are also Forest and Gale. This is troublesome. At this moment, there were only two of them, while there were three third-level gods on the other side. It seemed that they were at a disadvantage. As for the other gods in the group, they simply ignored them. Some of them were easy to deal with and not worth their attention. Of course, there was one exception. One of the luminous figures among the gods immediately attracted their attention. The god of shadows' expression was one of hatred and resentment, while the god of blood looked on with astonishment. This is the god of light you spoke of. There was no way around it. Su Yun's characteristics were too obvious. One look was enough to know his identity. Later, I'll find an opportunity to hold off the others while you kill that damned god of light. I absolutely must kill this guy, the god of shadows muttered angrily. Alright, the god of blood's eyes held a faint smile, but he still agreed earnestly. If that god of light was really as the god of shadows described, then he would definitely be a major threat in the future and couldn't be ignored. It was best to get rid of him now, otherwise, he would be difficult to deal with once he grew stronger. He was also full of confidence at this moment. With the god of shadows holding off the others, that so-called god of light would surely die. Thinking that a new figure would be added to his future honors, and such a special god at that, he trembled with excitement. As the two groups of gods drew closer, seeing the luminous figure, he suppressed his excitement and managed to restrain his urge to attack. The god of fire and the god of blood naturally noticed the god of shadow and the god of blood as well, and upon seeing their appearance, alarm bells immediately rang in their hearts. The god of fire, approaching, said with disgust, "It's you, what are you doing here?" The god of gale asked, his voice laced with barely concealed anger. Suyun remained silent, only staring at the familiar dark figure, his eyes turning cold, a murderous intent lurking within him. "How did we get here?" "Of course, by following behind you," the god of shadow chuckled sinisterly, his expression mocking. "Yes, it's fortunate you led the way, otherwise we wouldn't have found this good place. We can't let you take all the good stuff, can we?" the god of blood gloated. Although they were wary, they weren't overly afraid. It was just one more god of the same rank, they weren't worried that these three could stop them, and their words naturally became more arrogant. "You?" The Vulcans were furious. What did these two mean? They were following them and then mocking them. After venting his anger, the god of shadow smiled and looked at the god of light, saying, "What a coincidence, we meet again. This time you won't be so lucky. Be careful not to die." In his view, he had been careless before, and there was also the restraint of authority. This time, with the god of blood making the move, the god of light was definitely doomed. The god of blood suddenly asked curiously, "You are the god of light, the one who defeated the god of shadows while he was careless. You used a sneak attack, didn't you? But even so, you are still quite arrogant, ha ha ha." He laughed mockingly. The god of shadows' face darkened. To the surprise of the god of shadows and the Vulcans, the god of blood's words did not anger them. Instead, their expressions became very strange. "What is this guy talking about?" The Vulcans looked at them with pity. The god of gale, who had been constantly attacked by the god of light, now felt a sense of shared misfortune. These two probably don't know how terrifying the god of light is. This isn't just a careless sneak attack, I think they were holding back. The god of light can even kill someone comparable to a 4th level god. Even if there were 10 gods of shadow, they'd still die. Thinking this, he glanced at Suyun with a hint of fear in his eyes. The old tortoise shook his head, regretfully saying, "Of all people to offend, why did they have to offend this monster, the god of light?" Sigh, he already had a premonition that this guy's fate wouldn't be good. Just as their expressions turned strange, the two gods of shadow also vaguely sensed something amiss from their expressions. The god of shadow had a bad feeling, but to kill the god of light, whom he resented, he couldn't care less. "Attack!" With a loud shout, he unleashed his divine spell first. Shadow control. A massive shadow surged from beneath Suyun and the others, transforming into a wall that rushed straight towards the area between them. Suyun and the god of fire instinctively dodged, each filled with confusion. What was this all about? Seeing that he had successfully separated them, the god of shadow shouted, "I'll hold them off." "You kill the god of light." He swiftly stepped in front of the god of fire and the others. Staring at the shadowy wall separating the god of light and the old tortoise, the god of fire instinctively exclaimed in astonishment, "Are you insane? You actually dared to make a move?" The 4 of them were all isolated here. "What wouldn't I dare?" the god of shadows sneered. "Don't even think about helping the god of light before blood kills him. Don't worry, although I can't defeat you, I can stop you for a while. The god of light is doomed in this time. It's a real shame I didn't kill him." He looked regretful, as if he had missed something he would regret for life. "What are you talking about?" the god of fire asked with a smile. "Haha, you have no idea how terrifying the god of light is," the god of gale gloated. The god of forest couldn't help but cover his mouth and let out a clear laugh. If the god of shadows still didn't understand what was wrong, he was truly a fool. Suppressing his bad premonition, he asked with a cold face, "What do you mean?" Meanwhile, the god of blood flew to a spot not far in front of Suyun. He wasn't in a hurry to act, instead chuckling, "Little darling, now you're the only one left." The ignored old tortoise beside him was speechless. "Don't worry, your name won't disappear. I will record you forever, making you a part of my glory, and you will exist forever, haha." Fear it, tremble, he looked at Suyun expectantly, hoping the god of light would show the expression he wanted to see. He loved the despair and fear of his enemies before they died, it gave him immense pleasure. Suyun said in a voice tinged with amusement, "Yes, you're the only one left." The god of blood's face stiffened, his expression somewhat bewildered, looking at him with confusion, wondering how he could still laugh when he was about to die. And he was saying some incoherent things. Was he scared out of his wits? Thinking this, his face lit up with joy. "Golden wheel," a cold voice rang out, and a strong sense of crisis arose in the God of Blood's heart. What's going on? He looked at the small golden ball that had appeared beside the God of Light with some confusion, the sense of crisis seemingly emanating from this little thing. As he watched, he sensed something amiss with the aura of the small golden ball, but before he could figure it out, Su-Yun made his move. Su-Yun gripped the golden wheel, aimed it at the God of Blood, and released it in the next second. Boom! Whoosh! A shrill sound of air being torn apart echoed throughout the heavens and earth. What? The God of Blood was shocked. A golden light shot straight towards him at incredible speed. He couldn't dodge it. His mind raced, and he came to this conclusion in astonishment. There was also an aura. The moment the golden wheel was released, he immediately sensed the aura of a third-level god. How is this possible? Before he could even react, he hurriedly used a divine technique to try and defend against the golden light. A blood-red shield instantly appeared in front of him, blocking the path of the golden wheel. Thank goodness, the God of Blood subconsciously breathed a sigh of relief. Thud. As if hitting a piece of rubber, it froze for a second, and then, thud. With a soft sound, the blood-red shield was pierced through by the golden light. Ah! A scream rang out as golden light struck the blood god's abdomen, splattering divine blood. Instinctively, as the golden light drew closer to inflict further damage, he endured the pain and swiftly dodged, escaping the golden light like a seppuku. After escaping, the blood god cried out in anguish, "You're a third-level god," his face filled with fear as he continued. "How can your divine magic be so powerful?" A series of unexpected events had left him almost stunned. The God of Light was actually a third-level god. Most importantly, the God of Light's strength was far beyond his expectations. With this level of strength, how could he have carelessly ambushed the detestable God of Shadows? "God of Shadows, you lied to me," he roared in a shrill voice, making sure the God of Shadows next to the shadow wall heard him. Then, before he could continue questioning him, he was horrified to see golden light hurtling towards him, causing him to dodge wildly in terror. Next to the shadow wall. What? The God of Shadows' face changed, turning pale as ashen. Instinctively, he removed the wall of shadows, and the scene opposite him was clearly revealed before him, even to his surprise. The God of Blood was not only injured, but was also struggling to dodge the attacks of the God of Light. Truly a third-level god, he exclaimed in shock and anger, while also feeling terrified by the strength of the God of Light. Hearing his voice, the God of Fire and the others gloated. "What's so special about this? You don't think the God of Light only has this much strength, do you?" the God of Fire said with a smile. The God of Gale also chimed in, stroking his beard and shaking his head. "The God of Light can even kill a guy with the strength of a fourth-level god, let alone the God of Blood. He's in for it." "What are you talking about?" The God of Shadow's expression changed, his handsome face turning green. Although he didn't believe it at all, seeing that none of the gods opposite him refuted him, he felt a sense of foreboding. "What am I thinking? How could a god possibly fight beyond his level? These guys must be trying to scare me. Yes, that's right, these guys are trying to fool me. They can't even come up with a better excuse," he sneered. Finding the loophole in his words, he immediately became incredibly calm, looking at the battlefield with disbelief. "Stop!" the blood god dodged while shouting sharply, "Stop now, don't force me. Otherwise, you won't get away with it either." Thanks to the special nature of his authority, his injuries had mostly healed, but facing the golden wheel, he still dared not stop and let the dangerous thing get closer, otherwise the consequences would be unpredictable. Seeing that Su-Yun had no intention of stopping, the blood god gritted his teeth hatefully and suddenly took something out of the storage bag at his waist. Su-Yun's eyes narrowed, and he examined it closely. The blood god's artifact. It was a blood-red cup, its entire body seemingly made of blood-red jade, crystal clear and exuding an eerie feeling. Holding the blood gourd, the God of Blood felt the power of the artifact and instantly regained his confidence, even harboring thoughts of making the God of Light suffer. He had overheard the conversation between the God of Shadow and the God of Fire, but he didn't believe it. Besides harboring resentment towards the God of Shadow for making him offend a powerful enemy, he also scoffed, believing the God of Fire and the others were lying. The gap between a fourth-level god and a third-level god was not easily bridged. Thinking this, the God of Blood sneered, "You forced me to this, I'll let you experience the effects of my artifact." With that, he suddenly pointed the artifact at Su-Yun, and the goblet in his hand suddenly emitted a bright red light, eerily eerie. Chapter 176 Blood Cup Artifact. Su-Yun suddenly frowned, feeling as if something was missing from his divine body. Haha, can you feel it? The god of blood laughed triumphantly, holding up his blood cup. Do you feel something's missing? Before Su Yun could ask, he continued to mock. Look, your divine blood is in my cup. At this, all the gods' gazes focused on the cup in the god of blood's hand. Suddenly, the seemingly empty cup began to slowly and deliberately leak divine blood, radiating an energy aura and shimmering with a pale golden light. This divine artifact, the god of fire and the others were astonished, their hearts filled with surprise. This was the first time they had ever seen the god of blood's divine artifact, and they hadn't expected it to be so strange. The god of light is doomed. Unless the god of blood can be killed quickly, he will be drained of his divine blood by the blood cup and perish. The god of shadow laughed arrogantly, his gaze towards the artifact filled with apprehension. Even he wasn't confident against the god of blood who possessed this artifact. It was utterly unreasonable. To defeat the god of blood, the god of light would have to kill him instantly. Do you think that's possible? Ha ha ha. To see the anxious expressions on the faces of the god of fire and the others, he added with a grin. What? The god of fire and the others immediately paled, feeling worried for Su Yun. But then, as if remembering something, they calmed down, their faces regaining their strange expressions. He's angered the god of light. He's doomed, the god of rain said pityingly. Yet, sigh, hearing the words, the god of shadow froze. Am I stupid, or are you all stupid? You're about to die, and you still say such things. Just as he was sneering, a new change occurred on the battlefield. Su Yun felt the divine blood within him disappearing. Besides being surprised by the strangeness of the artifact, his eyes immediately turned icy cold. The god of blood sneered, even if you're stronger than me, it's useless. Just obediently enjoy the pain of your divine blood disappearing. He didn't plan to continue fighting. As long as he could stall for time, this god of light would slowly weaken, and then he would be at his mercy. The thought of killing a god of this same level excited him. He looked at Su Yun as if he were looking at an animal waiting to be slaughtered. In just a short while, the pale golden divine blood rose, and the cup was quickly filled. When it was full, it didn't leak out. Instead, it seemed to be condensing, and the aura emanating from the divine blood grew stronger and stronger. Su Yun ignored his taunts, quickly took out 40 of the 100 level 3 faith crystals from his storage bag, and then destroyed them in an instant. A surge of faith power erupted, instantly absorbed into his body. During his last battle, Su Yun's still recovering divine power was replenished in less than a breath, with a significant amount of faith power remaining, awaiting his conversion. Replenishing divine power, seeing his action, the blood god was taken aback, then sneered. Even if you replenish your divine power with faith crystals, you're still no match for me. Divine power can recover quickly, do you think your divine blood can too? He arrogantly and smugly shook the blood cup in his hand. The pale golden divine blood rippled, shimmering with iridescent light. The cup seemed to be bound by a force, preventing a single drop from spilling. The shadow god, watching from afar, also wore an excited expression. No, I was just restoring my divine power, Su Yun said calmly. You should be proud that you forced me to use a portion of my power. What do you mean? The god of blood was stunned for a moment, then became furious and questioned. Your divine power wasn't full before. He looked incredulous. How could this be? How could a god of this same level be able to overpower him even when his power was not full? And are you kidding me? How could you possibly absorb so much faith power? Are you trying to scare me? He sneered again, feeling that the god of light was bluffing. He was sure that once the time was up, the god of light would die from depleted divine blood. Gripping the blood cup tightly, he regained his confidence, but just then, a voice rang out. Blessing. Su Yun directly mobilized all the divine power in his body and then used an enhanced version of the blessing. Brilliant light enveloped him. At the same time, a terrifying aura several times stronger than that of a third-level god immediately surged from him. The aura swept around and was instantly felt by all the gods around. The god of shadows stared wide-eyed at Su Yun, as if he had seen something terrifying, his expression filled with shock. The god of fire and the others also looked at Su Yun's location. Although it's not the first time I've seen him, he's still so powerful, the god of forest muttered to himself. Yes, even now, he's not at his strongest. I really don't understand why he's so strong, the god of fire echoed. They could all sense the intensity of his aura, knowing that the god of light was now at most a fraction of his former strength, far from his peak. The god of shadows, who had been shocked, froze upon hearing their words. Impossible, An uncontrollable fear welled up within him. If even they felt this way, what about the god of blood, who was directly facing Suyun's aura? His mocking and smug expression froze, his eyes widened in terror, his body trembled, his mouth gaped open, feeling a sense of suffocation. You, he involuntarily took a step back, then his figure rapidly retreated and fled. He dared not stay any longer. What kind of monster is this? This aura is something a third-level god could possess. Escape. This thought immediately formed in his mind. However, the moment he retreated, his pupils contracted as he discovered that the figure radiating a terrifying aura had vanished without a trace, leaving only a lingering afterimage. At the same time, a cold voice came from not far beside him. Trying to run? Don't you think it's too late? What? The blood god turned his head in horror, staring at the glowing figure beside him, and said in disbelief, "How could you be so fast?" Suyun's face was cold. Suddenly, he flicked his sleeve, and an incredibly powerful and terrifying white light struck the blood god with lightning speed. The blood god had no time to dodge. Facing Suyun, who was several times stronger than him, he could only take the beating. Boom! A sound of impact rang out as the white light struck the blood god directly. Ah! He let out a scream, spitting out a mouthful of divine blood, and was blasted backward. The gap is so huge, he couldn't believe it. After truly experiencing it, he became even more certain that this was indeed several times stronger than his own power. Before he could recover, the figure that terrified him suddenly disappeared in a flash. Chapter 177 Acquiring 2 Divine Artifacts. Where? Damn it, he hurriedly turned his head, trying to find the figure, but to no avail. It wasn't until a sense of danger came from behind him that he realized with horror. Blood shield. Instantly, he cast a divine spell to protect himself, but before he could even catch his breath, a golden longsword slashed down. Thud. The blood shield lasted less than a breath before being sliced in two, and then the golden longsword struck him directly. Divine blood splattered, and a severed arm was flung off. The god of blood clutched his right arm, staring in terror at Suyun, who was remotely controlling the golden lightsaber. His heart was filled with horror. Such a huge gap, truly something a third-level god could achieve. And this guy didn't even rely on a divine artifact, just his own power. And judging from what the fire god and the others said, his strength is only a fraction of what it is. How strong must his full power be? He suddenly trembled. Could he really possess the strength to kill a fourth-level god? Sensing a life-or-death crisis, he immediately gripped the blood goblet in his hand tightly. No, with a divine artifact, I will never lose. I just didn't react in time. The divine artifact is enough to bridge this gap. He suppressed his fear, deceiving himself as he regained his confidence. Suyun felt a little impatient. This blood god was truly tenacious. He prepared to unleash his ultimate move. I say, light and darkness will separate. With a divine voice, darkness fell. Eternal darkness descended upon this space in an instant, as if returning to the beginning of creation. Although the fire god and the others knew they were alright, a sense of fear still arose in their hearts. That move again. Fear flashed in the eyes of the shadow god. He had been defeated by this move before, so the memory was vivid. He retreated hastily, trying to escape. Unfortunately, it was too late. Suyun had also enveloped him in darkness. What is this? The god of blood was startled, then quickly sensed a strong sense of danger. Blood shield. In an instant, the blood goblet in his hand glowed with a rich crimson light, and a blood shield, strengthened several times over by the divine artifact, was immediately unleashed. Now he felt reassured, confidently stating, with this divine magic enhanced by the artifact, even if he becomes stronger, he absolutely cannot break my shield. The god of shadows also took action, taking out a black bead slightly larger than his eye and casting a shadow magic spell that enveloped him. Just as they were confident they could resist, amidst the surrounding darkness, Suyun spoke. Light. As soon as the sacred voice fell, endless, dazzling light erupted from Suyun's body. Like the arrival of dawn, all the surrounding darkness was dispelled by the light. When the light shone on the blood god's shield, the previously confident blood god was suddenly stunned to see wisps of dust appearing on the shield, which shouldn't have been there. What? Before he could even wonder, he watched in disbelief as the entire shield turned to ash and scattered in the air. Not only that, he was horrified to find that dust was also appearing on his body. As more and more dust settled on his body, his face was filled with fear, and his body trembled uncontrollably. Is this power comparable to a fourth-level god? How can there be such a terrifying being? He realized what was happening. And remembering what the god of light had said about a portion of his strength, he now believed it. This strange power, to the point of annihilating a fourth-level god, might actually be possible. The god of shadow was experiencing the same thing, feeling the same way. He had experienced a feeling of watching his body turn to ash, unable to stop it, before, but he knew this time was different. I will die, he instinctively came to this conclusion, looking at the god of light enveloped in endless light, his eyes filled with resentment and regret. If only I had escaped sooner, I shouldn't have come here. At this moment, extreme regret filled his heart. As Su-Yun withdrew his light, the bodies of the blood god and the shadow god were now mostly gone, dust filling the air. No, accompanied by two extremely unwilling roars, under the terrified gazes of the fire god and the others, the blood god and the shadow god turned into dust and vanished into nothingness. No, something was left behind. Two gleaming objects quickly fell to the ground. These were things Su-Yun had specifically left behind, otherwise, they would have vanished the moment the polar day technique was completed. It was just a pity that he had originally left behind his storage bag as well, but at the last moment, those two guys had destroyed it by coincidence. It was estimated that if the artifacts hadn't been destroyed in time, even these two items might not have remained. He frowned slightly, his figure flashed quickly, leaving behind after images. Swish. Holding the two artifacts, his mood improved somewhat. The gods of fire flew over at this moment. The god of fire sighed, I never imagined that the god of shadow and the god of blood would die here. These must be their divine artifacts, right? The god of forest asked enviously, looking at the items in Su-Yun's hands. What are their effects? The god of storms asked impatiently. As one of those without divine artifacts, he was extremely curious. Su-Yun thought for a moment, then suddenly poured divine power into the blood cup in his hand. Buzz, the blood cup trembled slightly. As soon as the divine power entered, he immediately sensed a power that was both strange and familiar. Blood divine power. This power extremely repelled him, refusing to let him in at all. The blood cup erupted with bursts of blood-red light, forcefully resisting his power. The god of fire, seeing this, couldn't help but laugh. There is a connection between divine artifacts and gods. Fortunately, the god of blood is dead. His divine power can't supply the cup in your hand. Now it's alright. As long as you hold on a little longer, you'll definitely be able to dispel the blood divine power inside. The god of forest and the god of storms nodded in agreement. For those who possessed divine artifacts, this was perfectly clear. The god of rain wore an expression of understanding. Su-Yun suddenly realized, and immediately increased the output of his divine power. Half an hour later, after expending a large amount of divine power, only a trace of the blood cup's power remained. Su-Yun's heart stirred, and his divine power surged forth in an instant. Buzz! The blood cup flashed red light, but the next second it quietly subsided. Seeing this, everyone's eyes lit up, and Su-Yun quickly poured his divine power into the blood cup. The blood cup shone brightly again, but unlike the deep red that exuded an eerie aura before, this time it had turned into pale red, not only less eerie but also more beautiful. Just then, a piece of information appeared in Su-Yun's mind, making him understand the blood cup's ability. He was somewhat surprised by the blood cup's effect. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.